Hello, good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, the 9th of January. Here are your headlines. A weather bomb strikes the UK. Storm Goretti leaves tens of thousands without power and warnings to stay indoors. Tensions simmer across the US. In Oregon, 2 people are shot and injured by federal agents who say they were carrying out a targeted vehicle stop. People take to the streets of Minneapolis to protest the killing of 37-year-old Renee Good, shot in her car by an immigration officer. One person has died and 38 others are missing after a landfill collapse sends an avalanche of garbage into a village in the Philippines. And at 6:40, we'll be seeing what's making headlines in today's papers with Editor-in-Chief at the News Movement, Becca Hudson. Hello, good morning. Many across the country are waking up to the damage of Storm Goretti, with tens of thousands of homes without power and warnings to stay indoors. The first named storm of the year has brought snow, heavy rain and winds of nearly 100 miles per hour. Well, hundreds of schools are shut due to the amount of snowfall. Birmingham Airport was forced to close its runway and a major incident has been declared in Jersey. More heavy snow is expected today, with 6 alerts still in place. A rare red wind warning has been issued by the Met Office for Cornwall and the Channel Islands. And then last night, winds got up to 99 miles per hour on the Isles of Scilly. And more than 70,000 homes lost power across England and Wales, and most of those were in the south-west. Well, Tom Parminter gave us this update from a very snowy Buxton.
Here in North Derbyshire, and it is pretty relentless, and the wind is picking up. It's getting colder, and that is inevitably going to lead to drifting across the hills and problems on the roads. Already a lot of roads in this part of Derbyshire have purposely been closed, preempting any problems. They don't want people getting out stuck in remote places and then rescue teams having to go out and get them in these kinds of conditions. We're being warned that there could be 30 centimetres of snow in places as the wind drifts this snow in the higher ground of the Midlands and also in parts of Wales as well. And it is the expansive area covered by this amber warning that makes it quite exceptional. I think millions of people will be waking up in the morning from Lincolnshire all the way across to mid-Wales with a whiteout when they open the curtains. And it will be very difficult getting to school, getting to work, getting to wherever you need to get to. But this is a part of the Midlands here in Buxton where they are quite used to this kind of snow. But even so, they are preparing. They've got 4x4 teams, volunteers ready to get out and help people where they need to. And we've seen at Birmingham Airport, they've had to suspend runway operations, no flights in or out. And that is just because of the weight of the snow coming down in the West Midlands. And it is a taste really of what they've had in Aberdeenshire much more severely earlier in the week. Now it is England and Wales's turn.
Let's talk more about this. We're joined by Sky News meteorologist Kirsty McCabe. Kirsty, great to see you as always. Morning to you. What can we expect for the rest of today then?
Good morning. Well, the worst so far is over when we talk about things like the wind. We've heard that we had a 99 mile per hour wind gust, but we still have further impacts to come through the morning in particular before things start to ease a little bit. So there are still plenty of weather warnings out in force, but we can take a look at what happened with the wind gusts. You can see this was last night. We had the winds really peaking through yesterday evening in that purple zone there going through the English Channel. That's where we saw some of the strongest winds. So the wind gusts were widely into the 80s and 90s. These are the officially reported wind gusts. So very strong, damaging winds across southern parts of England, the Channel Islands, and the Isles of Scilly and northern France as well. And it was all because the low pressure that formed tracked its way across the south. But as it came through, it brought in this contrast really with mild air and cold air, and that's where we see this really sharp boundary. We end up seeing quite a transition of some heavy rain and some snow, and there are still warnings in force until 9 o'clock this morning. We've got the amber snow warning, and you can see the shape there across parts of Wales in towards the Midlands and northern England. So still further snowfall likely to come, and even once that amber expires, we still have multiple snow and ice warnings, yellow snow and ice warnings in force across many parts of the British Isles. So there is more unsettled weather to come through today, although the strongest winds are easing, still some heavy snow to watch out for. And even into the weekend, with the temperatures dropping as we go through the night tonight, quite a widespread ice risk is something I think many of us will be affected by. And as we go through the rest of the weekend, Saturday might be a little bit quieter, but Sunday we're going to see another low pressure moving in, and that one could bring more in the way of snow, widespread disruptive snow across parts of Scotland. So still this wintry spell of weather is continuing, but Storm Goretti, the strongest winds, have now peaked, but I think we'll still be feeling those impacts for much of the day today.
OK, for now, Kirsty, thanks so much. And just to mention, if you've been impacted by Storm Goretti, do share your pictures and experiences of snow, rain and all things weather-related to us here at mornings@sky.uk. We'd love to see them. Moving on now to the US, and 2 people have been shot and injured by federal agents in the state of Oregon. Now, the incident in Portland comes just a day after a woman was killed by an immigration officer in Minneapolis. A man and a woman were taken to hospital with gunshot wounds after the incident in Portland. The Department of Homeland Security says Border Patrol agents are conducting a targeted vehicle stop at the time. Now, Oregon's Governor Tina Kotek blamed the policies of the Trump administration.
We are all shaken and outraged by another terrible, unnecessary, violent event instigated by the reckless agenda of the Trump administration. This time in our own state, in our largest city, coming just one day after the tragedy in Minnesota. While the details of the incident remain limited, one thing is very clear. When a president endorses tearing families apart and attempts to govern through fear and hate rather than shared values, you foster an environment of lawlessness and recklessness. Trust is essential to maintaining community safety and the rule of law. Federal agents at the direction of the Department of Homeland Security are shattering trust. We need to investigate this incident efficiently and effectively so we can rebuild trust with our nation's government. There are those who want to cause chaos, but Oregonians know how to stand up and speak out peacefully. We must remain united in peaceful opposition to efforts to tear our community apart. We must not turn against each other. We must stand neighbor to neighbor. We must not take the bait.
Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance has defended the ICE agent who shot dead 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good on a residential street in Minneapolis. He said that she tried to ram him with her car and he opened fire in self-defense. But it's a version of events strongly contested by outraged community leaders. Our US correspondent, Martha Kellner, has this report.
Your soul needs to grapple with the fact that you murdered a mother yesterday. Her son is 6 years old. His name is Emerson. Her name was Renee.
The name of Renee Nicole Good, shot dead by an ICE immigration agent, is echoing across Minneapolis. Reflection and resistance. A focus for the fury at Donald Trump's wider migrant crackdown. Anthony watched the horror unfold from his balcony.
It's so close where the car eventually ended up crashing.
Yeah.
He wants to remain anonymous because he has a government job, but shows me video he filmed of the moment it happened.
Right there.
So this is her car.
Yeah. So that's when she kind of tries to get out the way, and then she crashes.
You knew that she'd been shot at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can hear in your video someone shouting she's been shot in the face.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I heard too.
The timestamp on this video shows it's 9 minutes before first responders remove her from the car. They attempt resuscitation on the roadside. It's another 10 minutes before an ambulance arrives. A few doors away, Aidan was also watching.
You've got a very clear view of this.
I've got
right here.
I was right in front.
You're pretty convinced that she was trying to drive away from the police officers.
She turned away from them. She was trying to flee, no doubt in my mind. It is more okay for a civilian to panic and try to escape than it is for a law enforcement agent to panic and kill someone.
But that's not the viewpoint in Washington. Qualified empathy from the Vice President.
What you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy, while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making.
At the start of the week, the Trump administration had launched a massive immigration operation in Minnesota, sending 2,000 officers onto the streets here against the wishes of the majority. It was already an atmosphere ripe for confrontation. People are being urged to protest peacefully. But peace here feels precarious. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Minneapolis.
President Trump is expected to meet with oil executives at the White House later, just days after the US captured the Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. It's thought representatives from Chevron, ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips will attend the meetings to discuss opportunities for investment. Venezuela holds the world's largest reserves of heavy oil, and the Trump administration has been open about their plans to enable US access.
We're taking billions and billions of dollars worth of oil, and it'll be hundreds of billions of dollars. It'll be trillions of dollars, but we're going to be there till we straighten out the country. We'll see how the country's doing, but we'll be running the oil. We're meeting tomorrow with all of the big oil executives. We're going to be right here in the White House. We're going to meet with the, biggest oil people in the world. They're all coming here. The top 14 companies are coming here. They're going to go in. They're going to rebuild the whole oil infrastructure. They're going to spend at least $100 billion. And it's an unbelievable oil that they have and an unbelievable quality of oil and amount of oil.
Of course, we'll have plenty more analysis of that meeting in the next hour or so with our business and economics correspondent, Paul Kelso. Do stay with us. Well, the Prime Minister has reiterated his position on Greenland in a call with Denmark's leader and spoken again to President Trump amid continued threats from Washington to take over the territory. Downing Street says Sir Keir Starmer acknowledged more could be done to protect the Arctic region and agreed with Donald Trump on the need to deter an increasingly aggressive Russia in the High North during his second call in 2 days with the US President. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of Denmark says the country is being bullied. Well, the former Prime Minister of Denmark says they're being bullied by the US administration with those threats to take over the island. Helen Thorning-Schmidt was speaking to our political editor, Beth Rigby, on the Electoral Dysfunction podcast.
We're such a small nation. I mean, we're a very small country. And to be honest with you, we feel bullied. We feel bullied by a bigger nation. So it is like in the schoolyard where we feel that we are being bullied. I think if you imagine this happened to the British Islands, where you suddenly had an American flag over it, the provocation is huge. So we feel bullied. We feel that it's an act of aggression. And the way it comes about, like a wife of an advisor to the president, is even like you couldn't make it up. It's like if you saw it in a film, you wouldn't quite believe it.
Well, let's take you to the Philippines now, because at least one person has died, 12 others are injured and 38 others are missing. This is after a landfill collapse. Reports say many are trapped in an avalanche of garbage and debris from a waste segregation facility. An employee at the landfill said teams were concerned about the height of the garbage for several years, as local media report that rescue team efforts have been hampered by hazardous conditions. Well, let's speak to our Asia correspondent, Helen Ann Smith. This looks like a disaster, Helen Ann. What are we learning here?
Yeah, absolutely a disaster, and a truly, truly horrible one at that. A sense, really, that authorities are trying to piece together the information of exactly what happened and exactly what the impact has been. The site appears to be a waste sort of sorting and landfill site, and looking at the pictures, there appears to have been this extremely large mountain of garbage and waste, and part of the side of it has clearly given way, and this huge avalanche of waste smashing into the facility below. It looks like, and according to authorities, there was a sort of a warehouse of sorts, a sort of open-sided warehouse where the workers were sorting through the garbage, and that appears to have taken the full force of this terrible landslip. What's not clear yet is whether there's more than just workers who were affected. There's housing nearby. It's not clear yet whether the landslide affected that housing as well. But what we do know at the moment that at least one person has died. There's actually a little bit of discrepancy between official figures, the police department and the local mayor giving slightly different numbers. But according to what the local mayor has said, 12 people have been rescued and 38 still missing. And there's been this frantic search overnight to try and find people. But really sadly, experts say in these types of disasters, the chances of surviving are actually quite low just because the material is so hazardous. And if there are pockets of air, then methane gas is likely to build up in those pockets. So sadly, a really grim scene that rescuers are having to work within. The local authorities have also said a few things in public, and particularly this I think is worth pointing to. They've said they wanted to assure the public and the families involved that all measures are being taken to, quote, ensure safety, transparency and accountability. And I think that's really important because there will be questions asked about how this has been allowed to happen. Was the plant managing that landfill site properly? And lots of people saying that the Philippines has, unfortunately, a bit of a history of not managing these sites so well. It generates a lot of waste, the Philippines, and also accepts a lot of waste from other more affluent countries in Asia, thousands of tons of it. And in the past, there's been accusations that it's not particularly well maintained in terms of the infrastructure and that law enforcement is too weak. Actually, back in the year 2000, there was a huge landslide in a plant like this that killed hundreds. So I think lots of questions to come about how this has been allowed to happen. But for now, the search for those survivors continues.
Okay, Helen Ann, thank you very much. Helen Ann Smith there with the latest for you. Now, Syria's Defence Ministry has declared a ceasefire in the northern city of Aleppo. This is following 3 days of clashes between the army and Kurdish forces. 140,000 people have fled the city because of the fighting, which was sparked by the Kurdish authorities' resistance to integrate with the central government. Now, President Ahmed al-Sharaa has pledged to unite the country after 14 years of civil war. Internet access and phone lines have been cut off in Iran as huge crowds of anti-immigration protesters have been marching through the streets of the capital. Now, reports say the first government building in Tehran has been set on fire while the crowd cheered on. State media has accused who they call terrorist agents of the US and Israel of sparking violence. Venezuela has released what it says is a significant number of prisoners as a gesture of peace towards the US. Opposition forces had demanded the release as a way to promote unity following the removal of President Maduro. OK, let's take you through the front pages today. We'll start with the Telegraph. It's leading on that U-turn by the Chancellor on pub and business rates, with reports the Chancellor, of course, plans to reverse her own decision. Now, the Daily Mail has the same story, the pub U-turn to too little, too late, they're reporting. They're also pictured there, as you can see, Renee Nicole Good, the woman who was shot dead by immigration officers in the US. And then the Eye says that at least 50 suspected zombie tankers from Russia's so-called shadow fleet have been sailing and recorded sailing near Britain in the past 3 days or so. And then the FT is the final one we'll take a look at. And they're leading again with oil groups demanding serious guarantees from President Donald Trump before they make investments in Venezuela. So that's how your papers are looking today. Do stay with us, though. At 6:40, we'll have our news review. I'll be joined by Becca Hudson, Editor-in-Chief at the News Movement, and we'll be talking through some of those top stories for you. Now, on to some good news for pub landlords. As it's understood, and you saw in some of those papers, the government is planning a U-turn over plans to hike their business taxes. Now there are growing calls for it to be extended to other hospitality firms and retailers. An announcement is expected within days. Let's speak to our political correspondent, Amanda Acass. So, Amanda, is this a government listening or a government addicted to U-turns? Morning.
Good morning. Yes, well, we think this is the 7th major U-turn from the Starmer administration since they came into office 18 months ago after the farmers' inheritance tax U-turn we saw just before Christmas, of course, winter fuel allowance, benefits changes and so on, just to name a few. But there has been a massive outcry about this issue, particularly over Christmas when we saw a campaign from pubs, more than 1,000 of them banning Labour MPs from their premises because of the extent of anger about this issue. And effectively, it dates back to the budget in November when the Chancellor announced changes to the support schemes that were set up during COVID for pubs to help them get through that difficult period. So currently, they were still getting 75% relief on their business rates. That was due to go down to 40%, and then April being wiped out altogether. Now, this combined with a change to the way that business property rates, the values of those properties are assessed in terms of rates changing, meant that for many pubs, the overall impact on this was going to see a big hike in the rates that they pay, 76% by 2030. There's been a big campaign against this from opposition parties, really kind of mounting a bit of a head of steam, but also from many Labour MPs, particularly those Labour rural MPs who were so worried about the impact on farmers of the inheritance tax, particularly worried about how rural communities would be affected by this. And indeed, on Monday, there was due to be some kind of revolt from a number of backbench MPs against the government's finance bill on this issue. So the Treasury say they are listening. They did launch a review into the situation before Christmas and spoke to the industry, and they're now looking at what they can do to try and ease the strain of all of this on pubs. They haven't yet exactly announced what this will look like. There's some speculation it could be changes to VAT or changes to the rates paid. Now, of course, other parts of the hospitality industry, restaurants, hotels, live music venues, cafes are saying, well, that's all very well for pubs, but what about us? So this story certainly isn't over, but I think a lot of relief for many pub landlords and indeed Labour MPs that the government are at least listening on this one.
OK, Amanda, thank you. Okay, let's take a look at the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Storm Goretti will move away today, but disruption is still possible in the south. Various yellow and amber warnings remain in place for wind, rain, snow and ice, but the worst of the weather was yesterday evening and overnight, really. The windy south of Britain will see outbreaks of rain, sleet and snow spreading eastwards this morning with severe gales near the Channel coast, easing a little bit there. It'll be bright or sunny spells with a scattering of showers.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
OK, coming up after the break, the war in Sudan has been going on for 1,000 days as Sky News verifies weaponry used on the front line.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent. We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction. I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. What you see a lot of here are military machines, soldiers, devastation and destruction. What you see very little of are the locals, the Gazans, the people who used to live here, the ghosts of this town. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered. You have the black flag, you have the yellow flag, people were kidnapped.
Inside this convoy, prisoners released by Israel in exchange for their hostages.
The Israelis
notice that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners.
There were tears and there was defiance. This land has been farmed for hundreds of years, but now it's a scene of conflict. Israeli settlers have come to this area to seize land.
They've taken the land that I inherited from my father, and my father inherited from his father.
What would happen if you went over?
Oh, we'll be shot.
This is a place where the past is cherished, but the future is feared. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Sky News, get the full story first.
Today marks 1,000 days of war in Sudan, which has become one of the worst humanitarian crises of this century. The Sudanese people are bearing the brunt of fighting between the country's army and paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces. Our Africa correspondent, Yusuf El-Bagir, has this report.
1,000 days of war in Sudan has led to this, a catastrophe of displacement and starvation, with camps like this one in North Darfur scattered across the country. But the war in Sudan is likely to drag on. The country's been flooded with foreign weapons over the 1,000 days it's been raging. Videos shared by fighters online show the RSF using foreign equipment across Sudan, including sites of some of its more severe atrocities and key territorial gains. This video from October 2025 shows an armored vehicle during the RSF's capture of El Fasher, which left thousands killed and wounded. The vehicle, identified by its distinctive polygon-shaped rear compartment and unique window configuration, appears to be a Panthera T2, produced by a UAE-based company, Minerva Special Purpose Vehicles, MSPV. We see the vehicle again here in November, as RSF forces approach Baba Nusa, a key town in Sudan's West Kordofan state. It appears the same vehicle has been operated by the Libyan National Army, de facto backed by the UAE, in Libya. Both Libya and Darfur are under a UN arms embargo.
These supply lines have been set up through networks and proxies that are supported by the United Arab Emirates and forces either in Libya or in Chad. So what we're seeing is essentially not one, but 2 arms embargoes being contravened. So obviously the Sudanese one, but also it's been a long-standing reality that the Libyan arms embargo is recurrently contravened.
This video from Khartoum, the capital, in April 2025 shows a captured Chinese-produced AH-4 howitzer imported to the UAE from China in 2019, according to the SIPRI arms transfer database. We see another one in this video, filmed by military soldiers in May. The UAE sent this statement to Sky News in response to our findings. The UAE categorically rejects any claims of providing any form of support to either warring party. They added that the howitzer referenced in the report is a system manufactured outside the UAE and has been available on the international market for nearly a decade. The assertion that only one country has procured or transferred this system is invalid. They also said the UAE operates a comprehensive and robust export control regime in line with its applicable obligations under international law, including with respect to arms control. In other videos, we've seen RSF fighters carrying a US-made semi-automatic M10 SAS rifle, manufactured by Knight's Armament Company, KAC, based in Florida. It's seen at the RSF capture Baba Nusa here, and during the RSF's capture of Hijlij here. We haven't identified widespread use of the M110 SAS among RSF forces, and this rifle was likely captured from Egyptian forces in 2023, but its presence shows the scale and spread of foreign weapons used in Sudan's deadly war. 1,000 days of war and counting, unchecked and raging through Sudan, devastating the people and the places that fall in its path. Yusra El-Bagir, Sky News.
Okay, still to come on mornings, the message from the Met Office. Stay at home as Storm Goretti brings heavy snow and rain to much of the UK.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. And well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent. We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction. I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. What you see a lot of here are military machines, soldiers, devastation and destruction. What you see very little of are the locals, the Gazans, the people who used to live here, the ghosts of this town. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered. You have the black flag, you have the yellow flag. People were kidnapped.
Inside this convoy, prisoners released by Israel in exchange for their hostages.
The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners.
There were tears and there was defiance. This land has been farmed for hundreds of years, but now it's a scene of conflict. Israeli settlers have come to this area to seize land.
They've taken the land that I inherited from my father, and my father inherited from his father.
What would happen if you went over?
Oh, we'll be shot.
This is a place where the past is cherished, but the future is feared. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Sky News, get the full story first.
This is Mornings on Sky News. Let's run through your headlines. Tens of thousands of people are without power as Storm Goretti smashes into the UK, bringing heavy snow and warnings to stay indoors. Cornwall's seen winds of nearly 100 miles per hour. There's an amber warning for snow in place across much of Wales and central England too. 2 people are in hospital after being shot by federal agents in the US state of Oregon. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the agents were conducting a vehicle stop at the time. Oregon governor says the blame lies with President Donald Trump.
We are all shaken and outraged by another terrible, unnecessary, violent event instigated by the reckless agenda of the Trump administration.
Protests and vigils have been held in Minneapolis after a 37-year-old woman was shot dead by an immigration officer. Vice President J.D. Vance has come out defending the ICE agent, claiming she tried to ram him with her car, a version strongly contested by community leaders. In the Philippines, at least 1 person has died, 12 have been injured and 38 others are missing after a landfill collapse. Now, reports suggest they are trapped in an avalanche of garbage and debris from a waste management facility that spilled onto a nearby village. Former Prime Minister of Denmark has told Sky News the country is being bullied by the United States over Greenland. Sir Keir Starmer says he's reiterated his position, speaking again with President Trump amid continued threats from Washington to take over the territory. Pub landlords say a government U-turn on business rates expected to be announced within days will save locals. Some have been warning their bills would double in April because of changes set out in the budget. Well, let's get more on our top story then. The message from the Met Office is to stay at home as Storm Goretti brings heavy snow and rain to much of the UK. It's the first named storm of the year. It's left tens of thousands of homes without power and brought winds of nearly 100 miles per hour. Hundreds of schools are shut. It's due to the snow in the Midlands, and there will be travel disruption throughout the morning because of the conditions. The runway at East Midlands Airport was closed in the early hours. They released a statement saying teams are working hard to clear the heavy snowfall. And then a rare red wind warning has been issued by the Met Office for Cornwall and the Channel Islands. Last night, wind got up to 99 miles per hour on the Isles of Scilly, and a yellow warning. Well, that's in place over Northern Ireland until around 10 o'clock this morning, as people are told to be careful of icy roads. Plus, a yellow warning for snow is in place. This is covering Wales, Oxford, Nottingham, and then up to the Peak District until around midday. And plenty more on that and all of our top stories. Make sure you check out our Cheat Sheet podcast today with Kamali and Anna. Amongst the stories discussed today, a rescue package that could be on the way for pub landlords who have faced an increase in business rates following the budget in November.
Reeve said during the budget that she would reduce headline business rates for the hospitality industry, but at the same time, she announced the end of COVID-era reliefs, as you said, Anna, which, when combined with a 3-year reevaluation of property values, dwarfed the impact of the rates cut. So as a result, pubs were facing an average rise of 76% over 3 years, while hotels were going up 115%. Now, since the budget, we spoke to publicans who are really, really concerned about this. So they will be happy if their lobbying has resulted in there being a U-turn. But for the government, I mean, it's just another U-turn to add to, isn't it? Winter fuel, the inheritance tax for farmers. It's just the latest chance for the government to have made a decision about something, then row back.
OK, let's take you to Antarctica now, and our science and technology editor, Tom Clark, who is filming a series of special reports, which we'll bring you next week. But here's just a flavour of what's to come.
Well, there might have been snowstorms where you are, but down here in Antarctica, it's been a gorgeous sunny day and about 1 degree Celsius, which I can tell you for here is positively balmy. We've come down here to tell a familiar story, and that's how this region is changing. People who are based here at the British Antarctic Survey's Rothera research station were telling me how usually at this time of year the area we're standing is completely covered in snow and the ice encroaches much further on here in the time that they've been living and working down here, which is 50 years now, and they can really document how much that's been changing. And obviously the most important story, consequential for the planet, is what that's going to do to our sea levels. 70% of the world's fresh water is locked up on the Antarctic continent, and that's going to melt inevitably now. We're looking at certainly the West Antarctic area that we're in, causing sea level rise of several metres within a few centuries. But there's also a more immediate and consequential story that scientists really want to understand more about. And that's how that melting, how the carving of glaciers is influencing the ocean currents that flow around Antarctica, because they act as a thermostat, effectively, absorbing much of the heat. They estimate around 75% of the heat that we've generated since the start of the Industrial Revolution, which effectively regulates the planet's temperature. If those currents are disturbed, it could have profound and more immediate impacts on the speed at which climate will change from now and into this century. And we'll also be looking at the politics of the polar regions as Donald Trump renews his threats to annex Greenland. Is that distracting him from what's going on down here in Antarctica?
OK, let's take a look at your sport now.
OK. Are you ready? Yeah.
35 prisoners were released from Barlini prison this morning, but only one left in a limousine.
Duncan spoke about the letters he's had when he was in prison, and that created a bond between Duncan and Everton.
It's not just words. I love them, and I'll always love them.
It's the story which has gripped Merseyside. Walter Smith's future on the line. The Everton boss apparently close to quitting over the multi-million-pound sale of captain Duncan Ferguson to Newcastle.
We were under pressure from the bank to get the overdraft down.
It upset me. You try to move on. It's not easy for me. I couldn't rub off my tattoo, could I?
The fans adore him. Then all of a sudden, a crash bang wallop, he's playing with the striped shirt on.
A fan had came into the training ground, burst into reception, sat herself on a seat and refused to move until Duncan Ferguson was re-signed.
It was a bit of shock once your club doesn't want you. Really, it's inevitable. You've got to move, haven't you?
What's signing for Rangers, Duncan?
OK, let's take a look at your weather.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Storm Goretti will move away today, but disruption is still possible in the south. There's various yellow and amber warnings that remain in place. This is for wind, rain, snow and ice, but the worst of the weather was yesterday evening and overnight. The windy south of Britain will see outbreaks of rain, sleet and snow spreading eastwards this morning, with severe gales near the Channel coast easing a bit. Elsewhere, there'll be bright or sunny spells with a scattering of showers, some wintry.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, coming up next, we'll be discussing the stories making headlines in today's papers with our panellist, Becca Hudson, Editor-in-Chief at the News Movement.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent. We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction. I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. What you see a lot of here are military machines, soldiers, devastation and destruction. What you see very little of are the locals, the Gazans, the people who used to live here, the ghosts of this town. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered. You have the black flag, you have the yellow flag. People were kidnapped.
Inside this convoy, prisoners released by Israel in exchange for their hostages.
The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners.
There were tears and there was defiance. This land has been farmed for hundreds of years, but now it's a scene of conflict. Israeli settlers have come to this area to seize land.
They've taken the land that I inherited from my father, and my father inherited from his father.
What would happen if you went over?
Oh, we'll be shot.
This is a place where the past is cherished, but the future is feared. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Sky News, get the full story first.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Hello again. Well, let's see what's making headlines in today's papers in our news review. Really pleased to say I'm joined by Becca Hudson, Editor-in-Chief of the News Movement. Great to have you with us again, Becca.
Thank you for having me.
Lots to get at this morning, as with 2026 in general. Shall we start with front page of the Times? A couple of papers, obviously, picking up on Rachel Reeves and that government U-turn over business rates and pubs.
Yes, so this will be the 12th U-turn. I wonder if you can name them all. I think I kind of probably could name most of them. So I think this one we probably all get behind. So we're expected to hear that Rachel Reeves and the Chancellor is going to kind of change the way that sort of the business rates for pubs, because it's been estimated that with the current, from the budget that we got at the end of last year, that we would see business rates for pubs increasing by 74%. We already know it's an industry that's under the under a lot of pressure. I think one pub every day closed in 2025. We know it's an industry that really contracted after COVID, never really recovered, and a kind of phenomenal lobbying effort by the pub industry to get the kind of the way that their business rates are calculated looked at, potentially looking at the way that property rates are calculated looked at, and also kind of tax relief increased. I think pubs are part of British culture, kind of however we feel about that, whether it's good or bad. It
National
kind of is.
Institution,
Absolutely.
I would stake a claim to.
Yeah, there we go. And so I think and I think we kind of don't want to see them collapsing. And what's kind of come out of this now is that other industries kind of related to pubs, so you've got kind of hospitality, hotels, music venues, also potentially wanting to kind of benefit from this U-turn. It's 300 million quid, so they've got to find it from somewhere else. But yet another deviation from that budget that we saw in November. Yeah.
And that's one of the criticisms that is facing Rachel Reeves, is that she didn't potentially, they say, foresee the major issues that the business rate tax would land her, and the backlash from the public too.
Yeah, exactly. There's a great quote from reading the Times coverage that one Labour MP says that the business rates for their pub, their constituency pub, would go to 60 grand, which is more than the average property price in that area. So you're right, it just kind of doesn't seem like the calculations politically were thought through. And here we are again with yet another U-turn, disgruntled backbenchers, and a successful lobbying campaign.
There we are. Yeah. OK, more to come on that, I'm sure. I just wanted to take everyone to the story that we've been covering here, and it's all about Renee Good, the mum of 3 who was shot and killed by immigration officers from ICE. And it's in the Daily Mail. It's page 8 and 9. It's double-page spread. And it's talking, Becca, about the backlash that's growing over this shooting and decision made by those immigration officers. It's really split conversation in the US, and arguments have really polarised both the Democrats and the Republicans. Donald Trump and the administration coming out saying they were defending themselves, this ICE officer who felt that his life was under threat. The Democrats saying that she was a peaceful protester. But what this article kind of drills down in is who was Nicole Good. She was a mum of 3 who recently moved to the city.
Yeah.
She was a poet. She played guitar.
Yeah.
And so the framing of this article for so many people, and you'll have a close opinion on this, is that she was a human first. And that's what a lot of the coverage, I think, has drilled down into in the last few days, who this woman was.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I think almost sort of the politics of it is one thing, but you're completely right. This was a mother of 3, had suffered a bereavement. The father of one of her children had died. She was out, going about her daily business, and then to be subjected to that horrendous act of violence that we've all seen, on the internet is just absolutely astounding. And what I've kind of been so shocked with is, you make that point about the Democrats and Republicans, is we all watch the same footage, and I find it kind of incredible that half the world are seeing a kind of act of domestic terrorism, which I think is what it was called by
that's what Donald Trump described, Renee.
And other people think that they've watched the extrajudicial killing of an American citizen, and the fact that we're all watching the same thing, but the response is so polarised, I think is so scary. But you're absolutely right. I mean, this was a woman first, praised, her mother calling her one of the kindest people to ever live. And you just think, this was a life. There was an incredible picture of the glove compartment of her car that was stuffed full with cuddly toys that belonged to her kids, and you just think it's those kinds of, that's when kind of brilliant journalism and brilliant photography does its job, because it just it takes the politics and all of it out of it, and you just think, I'm looking at a life lost, a 37-year-old woman.
Yeah. It's a desperately sad situation there for those 3 children. Becky, can you take me to The Guardian and success potentially for IVF in older women?
Yeah, I thought this was such an interesting story. So, we hear a lot about, the fertility cliff, and when women get to certain ages, the health of your eggs and the viability of pregnancy becomes that much harder. We also know, Sky News reporting it this week, that we're about to get to this place where our death rates overtake our birth rates. So we've kind of got this sort of interesting, we could call it, fertility challenge in this country. And there's some brilliant innovation that's been going on around improving the health of eggs in older women. So making the viability of IVF for women who are over 35 that much more successful. It's to do with replacing the protein in the egg, and it taking the viability from sort of 22% up to 65%, depending on the health of the egg, etc. And giving hope to so many women. I'm sure you and I both know people who have been impacted by fertility, people who've been through IVF.
Gosh, I went through a round of IVF. I was 34 at the time, and it was incredibly difficult, incredibly hard. And one of the things that stays with you when you go through IVF is you're told by scientists that after the age of 35, it's like you jump off a cliff when it comes to fertility. And as a journalist, it didn't sit right with me, and I felt like a lot of the data was out of date. A lot of the data was coming from male scientists.
Yeah.
There's a brilliant book by Rebecca Fleet who talks about egg quality.
Okay.
You can't do a lot about the eggs that you have, obviously, but you can improve the quality. So there is a lot of research out there.
Yeah.
And it's stories like this that I think give hope to so many people that you feel like it's a lot that's out of your control when you go through IVF. It's incredibly difficult. But there are small things, there are successes that are happening, and I think we need to talk more about the recent data, recent research, and speak to female scientists, actually.
That point you made about the language, like, it all feels so absolute, doesn't it? It's like the cliff, the death, the end of your fertility, it all feels really finite and binary, but obviously that's not the case. And so kind of rethinking how we talk about this stuff, I think, is really important and great news for lots of people who, just want to have a family.
Absolutely. Brilliant to pick that story. The other story, it's in The Guardian too, and again, it's covered in a couple of the papers, and I've been following this over the last few days, really, and it's X, and it's Grok, the app, the AI tool on X that can change images. And what I've been noticing over the last few days is that women and girls on X are now atting AI Grok and saying, you have no permission to use my image or change it. And that's what this story has come to. It's remarkable. Anyway, Sir Keir Starmer has finally come out and condemned the use of this AI tool. It's been creating these highly sexualised images of women and girls without their permission. And it's hugely concerning, to the point that Ofcom are now investigating the situation with how this tool is being used. And, you think you head to a place with AI where you feel like you understand it, you feel like, well, we're using it now in a positive way, whether it's in science or medicine, with IVF, but then we hit a new low. And I've been extremely concerned the last few days of just seeing women, and I mean, I don't post very much on social media, particularly on X, of myself, for various reasons. But then there are other platforms like Instagram where I do. Where I do post pictures of my family life or pictures of myself in the studio because I'm really proud. And you feel like the release of those images, where they go next. But there needs to be a tougher stance. And I wonder where that investigation from Ofcom goes. I wonder how big a stance Sir Keir Starmer eventually takes. There's been some calls for pulling X from the UK, which won't happen. It won't go that far, but it's extremely concerning that this is a conversation that we're having.
It really is, and that kind of self-censoring that you talk about, the idea of like, oh, I won't post that because I'm a bit nervous about what happens. Like that is not what the internet was created for, and it's not fair. And it's this constant reminder to women and girls that there's this kind of additional risk, to your online or real life safety. And I think, great that Keir Starmer has come out and called it disgusting. But to your point, I think we should go further. We're obviously never going to ban X. But, this all contributes to, violence against women and girls, which is a huge government priority. And, women having to at Grok to say, please don't allow my images to be, challenged and morphed and changed. I mean, that the responsibility isn't on women to stop their images being abused. The responsibility is on these tech platforms who make all this money from our data to keep us safe. With you, let's see what Ofcom come back with.
Elon Musk saying any illegal content will suffer the same consequences as if they upload illegal content. So, I mean, I don't really take much from that at this stage. OK, Rebecca, take us to the Telegraph. Ongoing protests in Iran that are really kind of not showing any signs of people sort of, deciding not to go out. In fact, more and more people are protesting. And whether this is speaking to what Donald Trump said last week about he's ready, locked and loaded to get involved here.
My goodness. I mean, we were talking about, weren't we, the bravery of protesters, whether it's, the people in Minneapolis and Minnesota and actually across the states and ICE, but, the people on the streets of Iran, in the face of what we know can be an incredibly brutal regime. These are the kind of ongoing protests sort of started towards the end of last year. Iran is in real economic turmoil. We've got hyperinflation. The cost of kind of basic goods is through the roof. It's the victim, it's obviously kind of under US sanctions, but also kind of, massive economic mismanagement by the regime there. And it's been really interesting because kind of we would probably have expected the government to shut the internet down sooner, which is what's happened overnight. So we know from Cloudflare, which is a big server, and quite a few kind of internet groups that the regime has now cut the ability for people to upload content, because there actually has been, and you've been using lots of it on Sky News, footage of protesters in the Grand Bazaar. I think there are 280 locations across Iran where people have taken to the streets, for support, because people just can't afford to feed themselves or their families. But overnight, the internet gets shut down, so kind of getting information out of Iran becomes that much harder. I mean, I'm not entirely sure that Iran needs Trump, but absolutely the people of Iran, are suffering. And I think the fact that in the face of what could be a potentially brutal breakdown, that people are out on the streets, I think, speaks to the severity of the situation there.
Yeah, we'll have continued coverage of that. Thanks so much, Becca, for your time this morning. That's all from me. We'll have all the latest headlines on Mornings with Jones and Melbourne coming up next. Stay with Sky News.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Hello and a very good morning. It's 7 o'clock. This is Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. I'm Anna.
And I'm Kamali. Thanks for starting your day with us. Here's how we're looking.
A weather bomb hits the UK. Storm Goretti brings snow, ice and 99-mile-per-hour winds, and tens of thousands are without power.
Tensions and fear across the United States. In Oregon, 2 people have been shot and injured by federal agents who say they were carrying out a targeted vehicle stop just days after a woman is killed by federal agents in Minneapolis.
1 person dead and 38 missing after a landfill collapse sends an avalanche of garbage into a village in the Philippines.
Also ahead, we're going to speak to the MasterChef judge and landlord, William Sitwell, about the government's U-turn over business rates.
Plus, ahead of the BAFTAs, what movies to look out for in 2026. Hello, a very good morning. Thanks for joining us. So, Storm Goretti has hit the UK, bringing extreme rain, wind, snow and ice. Winds of up to 99 miles per hour have been recorded, and there's major travel disruption out there as well. So the Met Office has issued a series of yellow and amber warnings as dangerous conditions develop on the roads.
Yeah, now Birmingham Airport has been forced to close its runway, and dozens of schools across the Midlands and Wales will also be closed today, as well as all those schools closed in Scotland. Now, of course, we're here in our nice warm studio, but tens of thousands of people are without power this morning, and there is a warning to stay indoors. Let's bring in our correspondents who are out in the elements this morning. We've got Dan Whitehead, who is in Wales, as well as Charlotte Leeming, who is in Sheffield. Morning to you both. Dan, first of all, to you, give us a situation where you are.
Well, we are in South Wales at the top of the valleys, just outside Bryn Mawr, which really was the scene last night on the Heads of the Valleys road, this main road that connects all the valleys in South Wales, where the problems really materialised. You can see behind me here just how many people had to abandon their cars when the snow got really thick in the dead of the night. At one point, we were hearing that just one lane was passable on this 2 or 3 lane wide Heads of the Valley road. It really is a major road, and people have had to just park their cars on the side and go by foot up to the nearby towns and villages to find safety. They will no doubt try and come and get their cars later on this morning, but we've seen lots of skid marks in the snow here from cars that simply couldn't get up the hill when that amber warning was really at its worst at around midnight in the valleys here. The snow has eased off now, and that amber warning for snow continues till 9 o'clock. There are some yellow weather warnings for wind and rain in some parts of Wales, so we're not out of the woods yet. Around 500 homes across Wales at the moment without power, so the majority of those properties without power are down in the southwest of England, down in Cornwall, where we saw those record winds. But there's going to be disruption throughout the day. We already know that there's cancellations, lots of cancellations, not just in South Wales, but in mid and north and connecting between North and South Wales on the trains. A real warning that only travel if you absolutely have to today. I think we'll see lots of people not heading into the office on Friday and instead working from home. Schools as well, already hearing of schools who will simply not be opening today. They closed at lunchtime yesterday, many places across South Wales and West Wales and into Mid Wales, schools simply not opening, and I think that will be the case today. But the gritters have been out throughout the night here on the Heads of the Valleys road. It is passable. We've driven the full length, but on the higher grounds and in some of those villages, that is where the snow is thicker, up to 30 centimetres was the prediction in some places. But as you can see, for many motorists last night, it was simply too dangerous in the middle of the night, and they had to abandon their vehicles.
Yeah, it's going to be a really busy day for gritters there, isn't it, Dan? Thanks very much indeed. Dan mentioned the situation in Cornwall. We're going to be there live in just a moment. But first, let's bring in Charlotte Leeming, who's in Sheffield for us now. So, Charlotte, what's the situation like there?
Well, in the more rural areas, that's in the higher routes, that's where we've seen the snow fall. We've woken up here to quite a few centimetres. We're next to a pretty main road. I mean, a main road when it comes to being in the peaks. That's being used by lorries because Transpennine routes are treacherous. They were closed last night. Things like, you know, the main routes across from Greater Manchester to Sheffield were closed. They're just too exposed, and there's no way that any vehicle go across those. Trains as well have been cancelled between Greater Manchester and Sheffield, so do check before you travel because of the weather warnings which come to an end at 9 o'clock. But of course, it's all the disruption, potential damage and getting from A to B. We know there's been some abandoned cars off the M1 off a slip road in Rotherham as well. People last night who tried to brave it and then were caught in that storm. And what we found was that it very localised, so some places didn't get it, but if you did, it really came down. It came down quickly with freezing fog as well. Now, just a few miles down the road in the Midlands, the west and east have had really bad snow. I think worse than they were expecting in some pockets of areas, and East Midlands Airport was closed for a time. That's now reopened. Birmingham, they've said on X in the last hour that they've got teams clearing up and they really want to get it open as soon as they can. They apologise to any travellers for any disruption, but say their teams really are working at it to get it clear. But again, school closures, power cuts in the Midlands, and I think a lot of authorities and headmasters and headmistresses will be deciding now, you know, whether it's safe to open their schools in South Yorkshire and Derbyshire. That decisions will be being made now, but you can see the traffic coming here. This will have been gritted as well. We were at a depot yesterday. We saw the huge mountain of grit that they hold there in the city centre. They said 150 tonnes will be spread across the Sheffield region. So a lot of gritting through the night, trying to keep people safe. But I guess the advice is if you can work from home and you've been hit by the snow, then do that. And only travel if your journey is absolutely necessary, because it's pretty treacherous on these isolated routes.
Yeah, really good advice. Charlotte, thanks very much indeed there in Sheffield. Thank you.
All right, well, that is the scene out in Wales and in Sheffield, as you can see. Darkness, the sun's not up yet, so we can't see what the full picture is like yet, but Kirsty McCabe is here with us, our meteorologist. Kirsty, morning to you.
Good morning. Yes, I've also joined you inside.
You have nice and warm.
Very wise.
Like the others. What's it looking like out there?
It's not great at the moment. The strongest winds have passed now, but we still have a lot of hazards out there. And I thought I'd take you through some of those this morning. So bring up the pictures behind me, hopefully. In a bit, with a bit of magic. We have got some very strong winds. Of course, overnight we saw 99-mile-per-hour gusts and very strong mean winds as well. And it's this zone here, the purple zone here. This was yesterday evening. That's where the strongest winds came through, tied in with Storm Goretti. Affected parts of the Channel Islands, northern France, Alsace, of course. And it's still moving across southern parts of England at the moment. The strongest winds might have eased, but for many of us, we're still going to see those really strong winds. And with more snow, of course, falling, there could be temporary blizzard conditions as well. Those were the highest wind gusts overnight. We won't see those strengths now, but we are still seeing widely 50, 60 miles per hour. So it still is very strong and gusty. And this is the low pressure that moved through. It may be moving away, but still bringing behind it some colder air. And that's why we still have multiple weather warnings out for the wind, for the snow, and also for the ice. So you can take a look there. You can see the amber still very much an issue. If I show you, I'm just standing in front of the way here. You can see here we've still got this very strong one here across parts of Wales into the Midlands and northern England. That's where we're still going to see some really significant snow. But that does expire in a few hours, but still the yellows will remain in force. So really, as we head through the weekend, we're still keeping an eye on the winter hazards, because when we start to see changes in temperatures tonight, really cold, we'll see ice is going to be a big issue for many of us. And then Saturday might be a quieter day, not as windy, but still some snow showers around in places, eastern Scotland, eastern England, for example. And then Sunday, another low pressure moves in. And so we're going to see, again, a risk of widespread snow. So it really is quite an unsettled spell of weather.
And also, with that kind of chopping and changing, that produces hazards as well, doesn't it? Because if you have snow melting and then it ices over.
I mean, we get mocked for not being able to cope with wintry weather, but that's because it often hovers around that freezing boundary. So things melt and refreeze, and that's actually much more hazardous and harder to deal with.
Yeah, and you can get floods if it really does.
Yes, and then we've got snow melt coming in, we've got a mix of rain, sleet, snow. It's really awkward, and that's why it's so tricky.
More rain for the next few days. Right, Kirsty, for now, thank you so much for that. More from you, of course, throughout the morning. Let's go to Cornwall now. Stephen Murphy is there and has been standing by for us. Stephen, great to have you with us. Morning to you. Give us a sense of the situ where you are.
still dark here at the moment. We're just here in the middle of Newquay, and a yellow wind warning is still in effect here for another hour or so. The seafront is just there, and I can tell you, if you just walk around this corner here, you're going to get hit by some serious gusts. It is still very windy in the coastal areas here, gusts of around 40 miles per hour. Just when you come inland a little bit, it's not so bad, but you can start to get a sense as things get a little bit lighter of some of the damage that has been inflicted, and that's just here in Newquay. So if I just show you, I'll slip out a shot, and Alex, our camera operator, can go in there. That's the William Hill bookies here, and you can see the force of the wind last night has quite literally ripped off the facade of the William Hill storefront there. There's lots of broken glass and bits of that facade scattered around all over the road here. It's being pushed into the gullies. You can see a lot of it there heaped against the Aldi as they're preparing to try and get things open. Pretty much everywhere you go at the moment, there's branches, there's more bits of debris there. There's another structure which is blown over just over there. As I said, just as you move here, the wind gets a lot stronger because the sea is literally just there, the seafront. And as you can see, it's still pretty blowy once you're near that coastal area. So still some structures on the way down here, plenty of tree branches and things like that down. According to the National Grid, as of just a short time ago, around 42,000 people, residents as I should say, are still without power. Those crews already out and about trying to work where it is safe to do so. Around 750 residents are still without power in neighbouring Devon as well, and some on the Isles of Scilly as well. There are people now just starting to get moving. Cornwall Council has advised, look, if you're able to work from home for the duration of Friday, please do so. And they're just trying to keep the roads clear for those emergency services and the power restoration crews which need to move around. Still, the rural areas, I think, where you're going to see a lot of problems. Cornwall has plenty of those, of course, is why people come here. Lots of narrow roads, lots of trees down, and you just look at some of the images on the stories on social media at the moment. I think it will be the more rural areas of this county where that damage will become clearer once things get a bit brighter. But at the moment, there's a huge job here in the southwest, and in Cornwall in particularly, in terms of restoring power. Newquay doesn't seem too badly affected at the moment in terms of electricity, but as you can see, again, from that shop front, from the crunching of broken glass as people start to make their way to their workplaces here, it's going to take a while before the full picture of the damage that this storm has inflicted on this region down here becomes clear, and then it will be easily into the weekend, I imagine, before all this sort of damage is sort of addressed and life will get back to normal.
Yeah, exactly, Stephen. You're so right. Thanks very much indeed. And it is that kind of cautious early morning check of
before the sun comes up, so you can see where. Yeah. So look, the situation at the moment, as we've been saying, is there are hundreds of schools closed, 250, I think, in Scotland, or rather in Cornwall, 100 up in Scotland are going to be closed. The transport picture is mixed. People expecting to travel by train need to check before travel. There's going to be disruption across National Rail. If you're going to be flying today from Birmingham or East Midlands, you should check before doing so. East Midlands says that their runway has now reopened. Birmingham is completing safety checks, but we'll really get a full picture of just how bad it is once the sun comes up, and we can sort of see the state of the roads and see whether or not people can get out there. And of course, there are power cuts and people are still tens of thousands still without power.
Exactly. And if you are waking up and realise that you've been impacted, do let us know, won't you? Do share your pictures, your experiences of whether it's snow, rain, storm damage, all things weather. Just email us mornings@sky.uk.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the United States now. And 2 people have been shot and injured by Border Patrol officers in the US state of Oregon.
Well, the incident in Portland comes just a day after a woman was killed by an immigration officer in Minneapolis.
Now, that shooting in Portland left a man and woman in hospital. The Department of Homeland Security claim Border Patrol agents were conducting what they're calling a targeted vehicle stop. The governor of the state, Tina Kotek, blamed the Trump administration.
We are all shaken and outraged by another terrible, unnecessary, violent event instigated by the reckless agenda of the Trump administration. This time in our own state, in our largest city, coming just one day after the tragedy in Minnesota. While the details of the incident remain limited, one thing is very clear. When a president endorses tearing families apart and attempts to govern through fear and hate rather than shared values, you foster an environment of lawlessness and recklessness. Trust is essential to maintaining community safety and the rule of law. Federal agents at the direction of the Department of Homeland Security are shattering trust.
Well, meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance has defended the ICE agent who shot dead 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good on a residential street in Minneapolis.
Yeah, Vance said that she had tried to ram the officer with her car and that the officer opened fire in self-defence. But it's a version of events contested by those within the community. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has this.
Your soul needs to grapple with the fact that you murdered a mother yesterday. Her son is 6 years old. His name is Emerson. Her name was Renee.
The name of Renee Nicole Good, shot dead by an ICE immigration agent, is echoing across Minneapolis. Reflection and resistance. A focus for the fury at Donald Trump's wider migrant crackdown. Anthony watched the horror unfold from his balcony.
It's so close where the car eventually ended up crashing.
Yeah. He wants to remain anonymous because he has a government job, but shows me video he filmed of the moment it happened.
Right there.
So this is her car?
Yeah. So that's when she kind of tries to get out the way, and then she crashes.
You knew that she'd been shot at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can hear in your video someone shouting she's been shot in the face.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I heard too.
The timestamp on this video shows it's 9 minutes before first responders remove her from the car. They attempt resuscitation on the roadside. It's another 10 minutes before an ambulance arrives. A few doors away, Aidan was also watching.
You've got a very clear view of this.
I've got I was right in front.
You're pretty convinced that she was trying to drive away from the police officers.
She turned away from them. She was trying to flee, no doubt in my mind. It is more okay for a civilian to panic and try to escape than it is for a law enforcement agent to panic and kill someone.
But that's not the viewpoint in Washington. Qualified empathy from the Vice President.
What you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making.
At the start of the week, the Trump administration had launched a massive immigration operation in Minnesota, sending 2,000 officers onto the streets here against the wishes of the majority.
I need some backup, boys.
It was already an atmosphere ripe for confrontation. People are being urged to protest peacefully. But peace here feels precarious. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Minneapolis.
And I'm just taken by what we heard from the Vice President of the United States there, J.D. Vance, saying that this was a tragedy of her own making. I mean, she was shot and killed by federal agents, despite what was happening at that moment. For her to be shot and killed like that from the video that we've seen, it is a tragedy. But this polarisation of the United States at this moment shows that everyone has taken their own story from what they've seen in that video clip, and now both narratives are being allowed to run, and the country is dividing itself further. And then we have another killing in Portland, Oregon as well.
Yeah, which is not going to ease tensions, is it? And as you say, a lot of anger out there, a lot of sadness as well. We are seeing a lot of vigils, and particularly, obviously, at the place where Renee Nicole Good died, flowers, candles, teddy bears, people in the local community focusing in on the scene where it happened.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the Philippines now. At least one person has been killed and 12 have been injured, and 38 are missing after a landfill collapse.
Reports suggest they are trapped in an avalanche of garbage and debris from a waste management facility that spilled onto a nearby village. Well, let's bring in our Asia correspondent, Helen Ann Smith, who joins us now. And Helen, this sounds like the most appalling story. What more do we know?
Yeah, absolutely horrific. And the pictures that are coming out from this village really show the scale of that landfill site. And it just must have been absolutely horrendous for the people who lived through it and for the rescuers who are still working to try and recover people. This took place yesterday afternoon, local time, actually. And you can see from the pictures that this was a waste processing and a landfill site. And there's this big mountain of garbage and waste, essentially. And you can see from the images and indeed also from what the local authorities have said, that just side of it giving way to this terrible avalanche of garbage that just came smashing down and into a sort of a warehouse of sorts. And the authorities have said that that was a warehouse where workers were working to shift through that rubbish to separate it into recycling and non-recycling. It's not clear yet whether some of those affected were other members of the public over and above the workers at that plant. It's also not clear whether there's other sort of housing in the local area that's been affected too, but just absolutely horrific. Authorities have been working through the night to try and find people who are still trapped, but very sadly, experts say in cases like this, the chances of survival are actually reasonably low because people are buried in such hazardous material, and if there are pockets of air, they're likely to quite quickly fill up with methane gas that's sort of released by that rubbish, sadly making the chances of survival quite small. There's a little bit of discrepancy about the figures, how many are missing, how many are rescued. The police department and the local mayor coming out with slightly different numbers, but what we do know is that one worker died on her way to hospital earlier today, which is local authorities saying very, very tragic indeed. Interestingly, they've also put out a statement saying that they want to assure the public and the families that they're doing everything they can to protect what's being called safety, transparency and accountability. And I think that's really important because there will be questions as to how this could have happened. The Philippines produces a lot of garbage. It also receives a lot of garbage from other countries in the region. And there has been a past history of some of these sites not being managed well enough. There was a huge landslip in a waste site like this in 2000 that killed hundreds of people. So there will be questions to follow about how this has been allowed to happen. Were procedures and safety standards good enough? But for now, the search for survivors continues.
Does indeed. All right, Helen, and for now, thank you for that, and of course more from you throughout the morning, throughout the day here on Sky News on that story from the Philippines. Now, Anna, it seems like there's about to be another U-turn from the government. It's due to be announced that the government is planning to row back on plans to increase business rates for publicans.
Yeah, that's right. But there are growing calls for it to be extended to other hospitality firms and retailers, and it's understood there'll be an announcement coming in days. So let's find out what we do know. Amanda's here with us. Hi there, Amanda. So yes, the suggestion is that the government is going to back down on this big increase in business rates that the pubs were going to face in April. What details do we have?
Yes, so it would be, we think, the 7th major U-turn since coming into power 18 months ago. Just before Christmas, of course, we had that change of plan around inheritance tax for farmers. We've seen winter fuel allowance, disability benefit cuts as well. Now, all of this dates back to the budget when effectively the Chancellor announced that she would be scaling back a kind of discretionary relief to businesses that they were given to help them out during COVID to pubs. So they did have 75% relief on the amount of business rates they were paying. That was going to go down to 40%. Then in April, it would be scrapped altogether. On top of that, the way that the rates in terms of property values were calculated is set to change. And all of that combined to mean a really big hike in the amount of business rates pubs and other hospitality venues are expecting to pay. So for pubs, they're due to go up by around 76% by 2030. Now, that led to a real outcry, and there's been quite a quick concerted campaign against this, which kind of culminated over Christmas in more than 1,000 pubs banning Labour MPs from their premises, and all of it's had an impact. The Treasury say, we are listening. There's a bit of a sense that perhaps they haven't quite realised quite how serious the impact would be, and now we're getting the indication that they are going to change tack. We're not exactly sure quite how, but they are going to try and help pubs, but not other hospitality venues. So they're saying, well, what are you going to do for hotels, cafes, live music venues? So
yeah, the pressure will build there as well. Yeah, Amanda, thanks very much.
Certainly will. All right, Amanda, thank you for that. Well, let's put some of those questions now to the chair of the Labour Party, Anna Turley, who joins us now live. Good morning to you, Anna Turley. Thank you very much for being with us. I mean, just on that final point that Amanda was making there, what are the government going to do for pubs?
Well, it's really important that we look at doing everything we can to support pubs. We know what a vital role they play in our communities. I have friends and family who run pubs and hospitality outlets, and I'll be in my local pub tonight chatting to local constituents and people that run the organisations there. So we know how vital they are to our communities, and it's a real priority for us. So we're very conscious of the context that pubs find themselves in, particularly with the revaluation that your colleague just discussed there since the COVID pandemic. We know it's a really difficult climate for them with those revaluations. So it's vital that we as a government make sure that we can do everything we can to put in place proper secure support for them to through this situation. And I know the Chancellor has commissioned work to look into this for us.
So you're not going to tell me what it's going to look like? The reporting has been for the past few days now that there's going to be a road back on this. Can you tell us what pubs can look forward to?
I'm not a Treasury Minister, so I know these conversations are ongoing. And the important thing is that we get it right for people, that we do this work properly. We work with the sector to understand exactly what the impact is on them and their livelihoods. We've put in a huge amount of work through the budget, £4.3 billion of support to help people with dealing with their bills, supporting them with the transition out of COVID and so on. And of course, we're doing a huge amount to put more money back in people's pockets and to grow the economy, which of course has a big knock-on effect for everyone working in our local high streets. But I'm afraid I'm not able to give you the exact details. I know the Chancellor will be working hard with her team to make sure that we get the right support in place for pubs and hospitality sector to make sure that they're not suffering too much from the consequences of coming out of the pandemic relief scenario.
So expecting that within a few days. Maybe we'll get it on a Sunday morning with Trevor Phillips. This is now, by our count, the 7th U-turn by the government. What's going on? Why can't you stick to a decision?
I don't buy this as U-turns. This is actually about listening. And I think it's a sign of a government that actually in touch with people, that is listening to people and that is responding. And I think that's what people would want.
Being bullied, being lobbied, changing your mind?
I think listening to constituents isn't being bullied or lobbied. That's what we're here to do. We're here to represent the people that we live amongst. And if a policy isn't right, I think it's a sign of a confident government that says, do you know what, we'll step in, we'll sort it out, we'll make sure it works. We've seen governments in the past with real ideological bent that have pushed through changes and with crazy budgets that have been based on their own ideological madness, that have hammered people's mortgages and businesses. We're a sensible, practical government that has put in place really serious steps to stabilise the economy, to turn the corner and to start to support people with really starting to feel the difference in their pockets. And it's right that if there's something that when it hits the contact with, the outside reality, that we amend that, we make sure it works and we make sure that we get the policies right. And I think that's a sign of a confident government that's looking forward, that's in touch with people and wants to make sure we get everything right for the people we represent.
Well, you said it twice, confident government. It's not working, is it? 7th U-turn by our count. You've got the most unpopular Prime Minister in history and you're 3rd in the polls. So all these U-turns aren't getting you anywhere, are they?
But we know how long that it's going to take to change things. We inherited such a horrendous situation. I mean, everyone can look around them in the communities and see what the impact of 14 years of austerity is and their communities on levels.
You've been in government now for 18 months. You can't keep blaming them.
No, of course, but the reality is we have to be realistic that it takes time to stabilise things, and we've seen huge progress already in a large number of things, like, for example, wages going up more in 10 months than they did under the previous 10 years. We're lifting the minimum wage. We're putting real things in place to support people in their day-to-day lives, from breakfast clubs to more nursery and childcare, from universal free school meals, as I said, to lifting the minimum wage, to supporting people in their workplace. These are real tangible things that take time to come through, but I'm confident this year people will start to feel more money in their pockets. They'll start to see the impact of the support we've put in place for them. And the economy is stabilising now, and I'm really looking forward to the next few months as people feel it in their pay packets and they have more money then to go out and spend in their local pubs and their local shops and hospitality to enjoy the communities that we're supporting.
Well, as long as you're not banned from the pubs, as you've had to row back, and I'm sure you're not banned from your pub because you're going to one later. Look, we don't have loads of time, but I do want to move on to what's happening with these shadow fleet ships. It's reported that there are at least 2 Russian zombie ships around UK waters at the moment. There's also reporting that the UK may be willing to go on its own and seize some of these ships without the US, as we helped the US seize that ship just the other day. Is that something the UK government is minded to do, start seizing these shadow fleet vessels?
Well, obviously, the government is going to monitor everything that's happening in the waters around us. And I'm really proud to have seen Keir Starmer out this week, working across the coalition of the willing, supporting Ukraine, working internationally. And I'm very proud of the leadership that we've got on the global stage, which we've been lacking, frankly, in recent years. So, of course, we'll monitor that situation. And, we're working closely with our partners to make sure that, we maintain international law and that we, of course, we'll do everything we can to ensure that that citizens are safe and that we monitor everything that Russia is doing in these waters.
And I tell you, I'm told I've got to let you go, but we're moving on to a story about Iran. I just want to ask you, as the UK government, what is our message to the people of Iran as we're seeing these protests move into their 12th, 13th day?
Well, of course, the priority for us is seeing that the people of Iran have a regime that is fair, democratic, and recognises human rights. There's a huge, long way to go in that struggle. So we want to see the people of Iran safe, secure, and we want a government that will move to a transition that is democratic, free, and recognises human rights. And I think we're a long way from seeing that at the moment.
Anna Turley, Chair of the Labour Party, thank you so much for that. We'd have had loads more time to talk to you, but we ran out of time. But thanks, Anna. All the best to you.
I just want to give you a couple of updates on Storm Goretti. We obviously were around the country earlier in the show, telling you a little bit about the impact that it's having. Well, we're just hearing that West Midlands Railway has said that it's suspended all services. They say they're unable to operate any services until the afternoon. They also go on to say that no rail replacement road transport's being provided because of the uncertain road conditions as well. And London North Western Railway has said that it's suspended services between Birmingham New Street and Liverpool Lime Street until this afternoon. Its services between Birmingham New Street and London Euston are also reduced. And quick word about British Airways as well. They've cancelled 25 departures, they say, and 27 arrivals that were scheduled to operate at Heathrow today. The vast majority of affected flights were on short-haul
Yeah,
routes.
interesting that that's Heathrow that's being affected. Of course, London hasn't been hit by the snow yet, but that rail network is severely impacted by this adverse weather. And if you are travelling today, be real careful. But also, I think the advice is if you can work from home, try to today.
Yeah, and check whichever transport link you're using, whether it's up and running. Lots coming up for you. We're going to be talking about Iran in a moment because anti-government protests have been intensifying. We'll have more on that.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, President Trump is expected to meet with oil execs at the White House later on today, just days after the US, of course, captured the leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro.
Well, it's thought that representatives from Chevron, ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips will attend the meeting to discuss opportunities for investment. Venezuela holds the largest reserves of heavy oil in the world, and Trump has been open about his plans to enable US access.
We're taking billions and billions of dollars worth of oil, and it'll be hundreds of billions of dollars. It'll be trillions of dollars, but we're going to be there till we straighten out the country. We'll see how the country's doing, but we'll be running the oil. We're meeting tomorrow with all of the big oil executives. We're going to be right here in the White House. We're going to meet with the biggest oil people in the world. They're all coming here. The top 14 companies are coming here. They're going to go in. They're going to rebuild the whole oil infrastructure. They're going to spend at least $100 billion. And it's an unbelievable oil that they have and an unbelievable quality of oil and amount of oil.
Well, Paul Kersey is here to talk us through how this might work, because it's not straightforward, is it, how US companies might get involved?
No, it's not. But what is interesting is how unapologetic the president is about putting oil at the heart.
It's the first thing he's talking about.
Absolutely. In the past, people might have talked about UN procedures and the rest of it. This is unapologetic. He's put oil at the heart of this gamble because it appears he thinks essentially control of oil can deliver his political and economic goals, which include enriching American companies, plainly. He says it will help Venezuela too. He thinks he can send a message to his adversaries, but control of the oil fields is clearly at the top of the list. And we've been doing some work with the data and forensics team at Sky, looking at how he's leveraging the oil wealth that Venezuela has and how long it might take to deliver. Even before Nicolas Maduro was seized, the US had established a chokehold over Venezuela's oil. I think we can look at a map here. We're going to get some action. Let's try this. There we go. The US Navy moved a little faster than my iPad. This shows the US blockade that built up off Venezuela. This was the day Maduro was seized, the 3rd of January. I mean, there's an air carrier fleet in there. This is an enormous oil blockade that effectively prevented oil moving out of Caracas, particularly the Jose Industrial Complex, where the Venezuelan oil industry is based. The aim was to... Here we go. The aim was to prevent sanctioned ships. There are sanctions against Venezuelan oil and prevent tankers in the so-called shadow fleet transporting sanctioned oil to the few remaining customers that there were. We can see the ships here off Venezuela and some further afield in the Caribbean. Remember, that fleet was still there. But there are some exceptions to this. Some ships get a pass, and they are American. They're run by Chevron. It's had a license to operate, exempt from sanctions under Joe Biden. And we can see the trail. We've tracked, these are some Chevron tankers in Caracas yesterday. Meanwhile, these ones on the move, one passing Jamaica here, one arrived just yesterday, coming from the Gulf of Mexico refineries where the heavy oil that Venezuela produces is refined. So they've been continuing to move. Now, if Venezuela's oil isn't supposed to be going anywhere, the question is, where is it? Well, this slightly scary chart tells us that quite a lot of it is stored offshore. This shows us what we know about what oil is sitting on tankers effectively in limbo and who controls where that oil might be. Now, it gets jumped in the last month of the year. The blockade starts in December. There's more oil stuck on ships. The yellow area here is China, which is the biggest customer for Venezuelan oil. About 75% of the oil goes there. But there's also a deal in Venezuela, the blue area. Green is Malaysia. There's a big refining industry there. We think lots of oil is sitting there offshore, unable to be unloaded. The red and the black is other or West Africa. Interesting, the West Africa, most analysts think that actually indicates ships that are spoofing their location to prevent their real whereabouts being indicated. So there's lots being stored offshore in limbo. Onshore storage is also filling up in Venezuela, and that reveals something about the state of the oil industry. It is decrepit. It has been underinvested in. There's been corruption, and for years it's been in decline. These pictures are taken of the Puerto Miranda storage facility in Venezuela. The first is in 2022, and you see these white caps. These are storage tanks. They rise and fall depending on how much oil is in them. If you've seen gas tanks, old gas tanks, they're similar principle. If they've got a white top, analysts think that means it's probably working and moving, but the darker red and grey and black ones indicate rust and they're decayed. If we come to 2025, we see many more of them are in that state. And Kairos, the analyst who put these pictures together for us, say they think about a third only of Venezuela's storage is in use, and that indicates quite how in decline the industry is. There's another measure of that, which is how many working oil rigs are there. The suggestion today in 2025 is there are only 2 working oil rigs. These are things you would to drill new wells. Go back a decade, more than 60 or 70. And of course, if you don't have the rigs that work, how quickly can you expand the industry and increase this? This is production. This is the thing that President Trump cares about. Venezuela, go back a decade or more than 3 million barrels a day from the world's biggest oil reserves. Since the Maduro presidency, sanctions and decline, it's plummeted to less than a million barrels a day. To increase that, to double that to 2 billion, most industry estimates are going to have to spend $110 billion to make that happen, and it's going to take a decade. And what's interesting about that, as President Trump prepares to meet these oil executives, is they are going to need some pretty serious guarantees about the legitimacy of this project, the contracts that they're going to be signing. But President Trump is banking that his word and the promise of those profits will deliver the oil that will deliver the political clout that he clearly wants from it.
See the potential there for
absolutely
available.
It's enormous.
Get it right.
So many people, Venezuela should be a rich and prosperous country, but a combination of factors have impoverished its industry and, as a result, its people.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Paul, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Now, I'll go, Shay. British farmers have been meeting at a conference in Oxford, and despite a recent U-turn on inheritance tax, there was little love for the government.
Now, the Environment Secretary proclaimed farmers as the heart of our national life, but many of them say there's much more is needed to secure the future of British farms. Let's get the thoughts now of the President of the National Farmers Union, Tom Bradshaw. Mr. Bradshaw, morning to you. Thank you so much for being with us. So, look, just before Christmas, the government rode back on that inheritance tax decision, which was the result of your effective lobbying. But there's more you think the government should do to support the farming industry.
We always said on the announcement, the day of the announcement, that was very much just the start of trying to rebuild the trust, the partnership approach, which is so desperately needed. With 70 million consumers living on an island, we need a resilient food system for the next decade and beyond. And to deliver that, we need a confident farming industry that's investing in the infrastructure on farm that can deliver that resilient food that's required by so many. And so we need the planning system to function, to make sure that we're able to build the on-farm infrastructure, slurry stores, reservoirs, poultry sheds. We need trade standards to match our domestic standards so that we're not offshoring production to standards which would be illegal to produce to here. We need an environmental scheme which is open and accessible for all farmers and can deliver the public goods that the new policy that was developed over the last 5 years as public money for public goods needs to be deliverable right the way across the country. So there's a huge amount that we need to work with the government on. Yesterday, the Secretary of State, Emma Reynolds, talked about working in partnership, which is something which is desperately needed. The Batters Review highlights that the partnership working, we need to work much more closely with government and across industry. And I think that it's very much the start, and there's a lot more that we need to see, the detail, we need transparency about the budget, but we've got to move forwards together in 2026 to try and unlock the potential right the way across the rural areas of the United Kingdom.
Has trust been lost, would you say, between farmers and the government, or has it been restored because of the backtrack on inheritance tax?
I think the change to inheritance tax is something that we clearly welcome, but it's just the start. It cannot be seen as the end. It enables the conversation to take place, whereas for the last 15 months, the conversation has been absolutely clouded by the inheritance tax changes. There hasn't really been an ability to move forwards on any other agenda. And so while in principle, we're still opposed to taxing business assets as though they're personal wealth, we recognise that with this government, the solution that was provided on the 23rd of December is the best solution that we're going to get at the moment. We will carry on lobbying on inheritance tax when the next political opportunity arises. But until then, there is so much that we need to deliver, which can benefit our members, making sure we have a thriving, profitable industry. But that when you look at the geopolitical situation around the world, some of which you've just been covering this morning, we need to invest in domestic food production so that we have that resilient food system that matters to every consumer across the country.
Well, Tom Bradshaw, President of the NFU, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Mr. Bradshaw.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, the new chair of the Bar Council is calling for there to be a rethink on the government's plans to scrap jury trials. Kirsty Brimelow says another of her top priorities will be stamping out sexual harassment within the legal profession. Well, pleased to say, Ms Brimelow joins us now this morning. Good morning to you.
Very good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for being with us. Why don't we start with the jury trials? We don't have loads of time, so there's plenty to get through with you.
Yes.
The government had this plan to scrap jury trials. What's the Bar Council's position on that?
It's in complete opposition to that plan for pragmatic and principled reasons. The pragmatic ones are that it won't actually impact upon the delays that we see in the courts, and the delays are a crisis in the criminal justice system. So we want to cut the delays. We want the criminal justice system to return to one we can be proud of. However, getting rid of a really deep-rooted constitutional principle, a jury trial, is not the way to do it.
You say it won't cut the backlogs, but David Lammy says it'll do exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying that there's a record backlog at the moment, currently almost 80,000 cases waiting to be heard. He says that's going to go up to 100,000 if he doesn't take some radical steps.
Yes, well, actually, more recently, and there was a debate a couple of days ago, the Opposition Day debate, what the Courts Minister said was, in fact, this is an ideological move by the government, irrespective of whether there was a backlog or not. There's simply no data that it will reduce the backlog. Practically, in order to do this, you would need primary legislation. That will take some time. So even on David Lammy's assessment, it would be a good 2 years plus before it would have any impact. And even then, looking at their independent report, the author of that report says the effect, his predictions are very uncertain. He's pointed to lack of modelling and lack of research. So it's a little bit finger in the air stuff, I'm afraid, from David Lammy.
But wouldn't they say that it's quicker and cheaper to do it this way? I mean, the way that you want to get the backlog down is, I guess, have more sitting days, have more people in court, have more staff around. It's going to cost more money and they haven't got any money to spend.
Well, it's going to cost money to set up a new court. So the proposal is setting up a new court with a single judge. That's not been costed at all. A judge would need time to write judgments. So currently, when a jury's in retirement on a trial, the judge gets on with other work, gets on with another trial, gets on with a list. They would need time. So that's not been costed at all. So there's nothing there to say it would actually mean that it's more expensive to carry on as it is. If the efficiencies are brought in, that will cut costs. And one really simple one is get a defendant to court on time, so we as barristers aren't sitting around for half the day waiting for the case to start. Yeah.
I do also want to ask you, we don't have much time, we'll just squeeze this in. Last year, Baroness Harriet Harman carried out a review of sexism and sexual harassment within the bar. How badly needed was that report? Have you experienced sexism in your time?
Absolutely. I was a junior barrister in the 1990s and early noughties, and I certainly experienced it. I think the difference then to now is that there really was nowhere to go with a complaint. The bar has certainly improved in terms of having points of contact for people who are experiencing this behaviour. But what we want is this behaviour not to happen at all, and to move the jeopardy from the person who's experiencing it to the perpetrator. So the independent review by Harriet Harman was commissioned by the Bar Council, and she reported in 2025 in September. And I'm determined to implement it in order to reverse. There has been a trend in order to reverse an uptick of complaints. Now, whether that's because people are more empowered to complain or whether it's because the behaviour is getting worse, it's difficult to say, but it should be reduced. And one way of doing it is actually even improving even more the access that people have to complain. And quite exciting, one new position that's going to be announced very shortly is there will be a commissioner who will be employed by the Bar Council as a point for people to complain to if the behaviour is happening to them, which is wrong, sexual harassment or harassment. But if it's serious misconduct, there's still a regulation. I would encourage, though, anyone who's watching that to still come to the bar is a great place to work, and this still is not a majority, but obviously, let's stamp it out.
36 recommendations, you're going to bring them all in, you say, and the independent commissioner is the most important one, as you say. So we don't have loads of time, but we'll have you back, Ms. Brimelow, if we can, and we'll talk about it in some more detail. It's very important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us. All right, stay with us here on Mornings as we rush through the rest of our news. And we're going to look, last night at the football as Arsenal and Liverpool drew 0-0 at the Emirates, and then Mr. Martinelli did this to a Liverpool opponent.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
Well, let's kick off.
And make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs?
He's coming out! What more do you need?
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent. We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction. I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. What you see a lot of here are military machines, soldiers, devastation and destruction. What you see very little of are the locals, the Gazans, the people who used to live here, the ghosts of this town. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered. You have the black flag, you have the yellow flag, people were kidnapped.
Inside this convoy, prisoners released by Israel in exchange for their hostages. The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners. There were tears and there was defiance. This land has been farmed for hundreds of years, but now it's a scene of conflict. Israeli settlers have come to this area to seize land.
They've taken the land that I inherited from my father, and my father inherited from his father.
What would happen if you went over?
Oh, we'll be shot.
This is a place where the past is cherished, but the future is feared. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Sky News, get the full story first.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Jackie has joined us for a look at the game last night. Good morning to you, Jackie. Happy 2026 as well. Big game last night at the Emirates. Did it live up to expectations?
No, it didn't really. It really didn't. It was a bit sort of never really got going, and it was a great opportunity for Arsenal to go 8 points clear at the top, which would have been a great cushion ahead of Manchester City and Aston Villa. I mean, that's a really decent chunk of points, isn't it? But they couldn't do it, and they should have. They should have done it in the first half. There was lots of chances for Arsenal. They dominated the first half. There was lots of, great opportunities, and then no one on the end of the crosses. And they all were almost made to pay because Conor Bradley, against the run of play, had a fantastic chance. Here it is. There was a mistake by Arsenal, and the ball comes to him, and he chips it, and it hits the crossbar. And that really was against the whole run of play in the first half. Into the second half, Liverpool were loads better, much improved. In fact, they dominated the second half. And it was very nervy for Arsenal. Yeah. It was very, you can sort of feel that they were quite nervous, and the crowd were thinking, Liverpool might, stitch us up here. And then very odd moments for Gabriel Martinelli, because Conor Bradley went down injured. And if you haven't seen this, it's not anything anyone's done. It's something he's done, and he's gone down injured, clutching his knee. Gabriel Martinelli didn't realise that he was properly injured and thought he was time-wasting, and this is right towards the end of the match. He thought he wanted to get on with the match, threw a ball at him, tried to manhandle him off the pitch, which is obviously a big no-no, and, all sorts of criticism this morning. Amazing the Liverpool players didn't really go for him more. He has apologised for that. You know, he said he's deeply sorry. I've messaged Connor, I've already apologised to him. I really didn't understand he was seriously injured in the heat of the moment. I want to say I'm deeply sorry for reacting. Sending Connor all my best again for a quick recovery. And
well, that's something at least. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it was quite interesting as well. Like Arne Slot didn't actually defend Martinelli, but he said, you know, he shouldn't have done it, but I can see why he did do it. So many players go down and they're cheating, they're not injured, they are running down the clock. And he probably thought, I want to get on with it. He's running down the clock. But it was one of those instances where he was
didn't
not.
look great.
And it was actually
Do we know
very
how bad the injury is?
No, he'll be scanned today. He left on a stretcher and then he left the ground on crutches with a knee brace. So it didn't look good.
No.
So he'll
like
be
that.
scanned today. I'm sure there'll be an announcement out of Liverpool today, but...
and they need him as well.
And they need him.
They need him. I mean, Liverpool are going to be a bit
Yeah.
relieved, aren't they, to get a draw out of that match?
Well, I think Arsenal will be
happy not to have
very
lost,
relieved to get a draw out of that
Well,
match. So they've had, you know, a good post-Christmas run. So in the 4 matches since Christmas, they've won 3 and drawn 1. And, you know, if you'd said that to them before Christmas, I think they would have bitten your hand off, really. You know, 6 points clear of Manchester United and Villa. There was definitely signs of, you know, positivity there for Liverpool. So all in all, in a filthy night of rain.
Oh my goodness!
In
I
North
watched the first
London,
half, and I have to say, every time I thought, oh, it looks fine. Then when you do a cutaway of the rain
down.
against the lights. Oh my goodness!
Yeah. It was. I think a little bit of a dull, sort of stifled match.
Yeah.
But I guess.
But Arsenal not losing at home, top of the league. They're still.
Yeah, but they were on a run of 7 matches at home, wins, and they were going for the 8th. And that didn't happen.
Is this going to be the moment they start choking like previous seasons? Not wishing it on them at all.
It was nervy in that second half, but Liverpool were really good.
Jackie, thank you for that. See you again next hour. And see you guys again in a couple of minutes' time.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Hello and a very good morning. It's 8 a.m. This is Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. I'm Anna.
And I'm Kamali. Thanks for starting your day with us. It's how we're looking.
A weather bomb hits the UK. Storm Goretti brings snow, ice and 99-mile-per-hour winds with tens of thousands without power.
Tension and fear across the United States. In Oregon, 2 people are shot and injured by federal agents who say they were carrying out a targeted stop a day after a woman is killed by federal agents in Minneapolis.
1 person dead and 38 missing after a landfill collapse sends an avalanche of rubbish into a village in the Philippines.
And we're going to speak later to the MasterChef judge and landlord, William Sitwell, about the government's planned U-turn over business rates on pubs.
Indeed. Plus, ahead of the BAFTAs, what movies to look out for in 2026.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for being with us on a stormy day out there for parts of the UK. Storm Goretti has hit, bringing extreme rain, wind, snow and ice and winds of up to 99 miles per hour. There's been major travel disruption too. The Met Office has issued a series of yellow and amber warnings as dangerous conditions continue to develop.
Yeah, so British Airways has cancelled more than 50 flights from Heathrow today. Meanwhile, East Midlands Airport has now reopened, as has Birmingham Airport, but that's running a reduced service. And meanwhile, dozens of schools across the Midlands and Wales are going to be closed today.
Yeah, and up in Scotland, 2 schools are closed. Now, we're here in the nice warm studio, but tens of thousands are without power, and there are warnings for most people to just stay indoors if you're in the path of the storm. Now, our correspondents are out there. Poor things this morning. Dan Whitehead is in South Wales. Charlotte Leeming is in Hope Valley in Derbyshire. Dan, Charlotte, morning both to you. The sun is up. We can see the snow laying behind you. Dan, why don't you give us a sense of what it's like where you are first?
Yeah, we're in Bryn Mawr in the Welsh valleys here, where you can see the snow has fallen throughout the night. That amber weather warning just coming to an end in the next hour or so, but it's had an impact already. Top of the valleys in South Wales, the Heads of the Valleys Road really was where the worst of the problems were overnight. We were up there in the last hour and we brought you those pictures of cars abandoned by the road. Simply in the middle of the night, people not being able to get through. Just passable is what we were hearing on that main road that connects all the South Wales valleys, so people had to leave their cars, go by foot into their nearest towns and villages. This is one of those places, and you can see that the snow has fallen here. The local shop simply not open. It was meant to open in the last hour or so. That's not happening at all. We've seen people shoveling their cars out. That main road I was talking about, where people abandoned their cars, is just up on the hillside in the distance there. And of course, as you go higher, the snow is thicker. We've seen a few people making the journeys, as I say, scraping their cars, getting the shovels out and trying to get to work. You can see that some of the more main roads through the towns and villages have been gritted, but as you go up off into the side roads here, you can just see how dangerous it's looking and the ice, and that really is behind the warnings that the officials are issuing here in Wales, just to only make essential journeys, because a lot of those side roads, the gritters of course and the ploughs, have not been able to get up. This silver van here is a builder. We were just seeing him a couple of minutes ago. He's working on a house at the top of the road. He was carrying a big 6-foot plank and all of his materials. He didn't want to drive up there. He carried them by foot all the way to the top of the road there. So people trying to go about their day, but incredibly difficult. There are schools closed across Wales, of course, not just here in South Wales, mid and north, where the snow has fallen as well. That amber warning is in place pretty much for the whole of Wales and going east into the Midlands. So many schools closed. I think later on this morning we may well see some of those children enjoying the snow. But for now, some people trying to get to work, but it's clearly having a significant impact.
Dan, thanks very much indeed. Charlotte, what about where you are?
Well, now it's light, of course. We can see the impact and the fall of the snow from overnight. It looks absolutely gorgeous, doesn't it? It's like a winter wonderland, but they're used to it in this rural part of Derbyshire. We saw someone going to work. She had a big coat on, a torch on her head, and she just simply walked it. She said, we're used to it here, and it's nothing like 2010 when they had absolutely days and days of snow. Having said that, we have seen gritters up on the high ground, and also the farmers get involved as well by spreading grit on those rural areas that, you know, the big lorries can't get to, and also ploughing if it is needed. But there's still disruption, don't get me wrong, around Derbyshire and Yorkshire. Last night on the M62 around Saddleworth, there was a lorry fire, and the motorway, which is a main route, particularly when other Transpennine routes are shut because of the bad weather, that was there for a number of hours, causing massive, major delays. It was cleared in the early hours. So the Transpennine routes are tricky. Snake Pass, Woodhead Pass, all closed today, so do keep an eye on that. So that's a route that you just cannot get across, and that's the same with the trains. Now, in the Midlands, they've had a massive load of snow, and that's called power cuts. We're expecting a lot of school closures as well. As you mentioned, Birmingham and East Midlands runways were closed for a time, and although they've reopened, of course, there'll be a bit of a backlog and trying to get back on track, and they're urging any holidaymakers, any travellers to please check with their airline operators. Now, in Sheffield, they yesterday with the gritting depot much of the day, they were spreading 150 tonnes of grit across the whole of the region. So seems to be running quite well, but certainly a lot of disruption on the roads. And in the pockets where the snow has fallen, it really has dumped a lot of snow. So the options are for people, you know, to potentially work from home today. And as we say, there might be a lot of school closures in the Yorkshire, Derbyshire and Midlands regions, but to really check with the local council. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous here. You can see why tourists come here every year. There's some hardy walkers we've seen as well who are hoping to set out on a long walk today, but we'll see how it goes. It stops snowing now, and that warning comes to an end at 9 a.m.
All right, Charlotte, for now, thank you so much for that, and Dan as well. I wonder what we need to know now really is what's happening more broadly. Kirsty, our meteorologist, has joined us. Kirsty, I had a little notification on my phone. They're looking at the weather app. It says it's going to start snowing in London. Is that what we're expecting soon?
We could get some sleety, snowy weather moving through. The problem is it's a really awkward mix of this band of rain, sleet, snow moving across southern parts of Britain today. And for some of us waking up and going, yay, we've got snow. Other people going, oh, we've got snow. And then other people going, oh my gosh, where is the snow? Because just a tiny bit of elevation, just a bit of height makes a huge difference to whether or not you'll see the snow. But potentially that's the problem. Snow is so tricky to forecast. And so is the wind. But should we talk about the wind first then? Yeah. So, yes, last night was really quite a wild night. It was yesterday evening we saw some of the strongest winds moving through. And you can see it was this purple area here where we had the strongest wind gusts. Actually, 99-mile-per-hour wind gusts recorded in the Isles of Scilly. So, very windy weather indeed. And that moving its way through the channel will continue. If we animate the graphics, will continue to move through. These were the strongest gusts then. We've got a league table coming up showing you where we've had them widely. We saw 90 to 99 mile per hour gusts across southern parts of England, the Isles of Scilly, Channel Islands, and northern France too, seeing the very strong winds as well from Storm Goretti. It was actually named by Meteo France. They were expecting to see some of the worst impacts. As we look across the wider picture then, it's a low pressure system that's moved through. Behind it, we're bringing in some colder air. And then behind that again, we're actually going to see another low pressure moving in on Sunday. So the weather is still pretty tricky to keep an eye on, and there's multiple warnings in force. So the weather warnings out, the red from last night is gone. We've still got amber in force, though. This is the amber zone here across parts of Wales and the Midlands. You can see the amber will expire soon, around 9 o'clock, but we'll still have multiple yellow, snow, ice warnings in force, and that's still to bear in mind as we head through the rest of the day. So could be another 20 centimetres of snow across parts of Wales, Midlands and Northern England. It could be a few flurries elsewhere. We have got quite a widespread area affected today. But tonight, temperatures are dropping. Could be as low as minus 15 across the lying snow in Scotland, because although northern parts of Britain is quite quiet at the moment, they've got freezing fog and ice and still a few wintry showers. So although they've not got the strong winds, it's still pretty wintry up there as well. So very cold night tonight. So slippy weekend with the ice.
And sort of perils over the next few days of kind of warming and then cold, freezing temperatures again. That can cause all
and I
sorts of
think we all
problems,
forget how to cope with cold weather, how to drive, how to keep your house warm. It's a bit of a gear change when it happens.
Definitely is. And Kirsty, I'm glad you gave me that heads up about the name of the gritters in Scotland, because I've just had a little look here about the names of the gritters. So in Scotland, you get to name your gritters, right?
And I think other parts of the UK do it as well, but you can also track them in Scotland.
I'm tracking them right now.
It's so good to track the gritters.
At Bear Chills, Salty Claws, Blizzard Wizard, Gritton Bear, it's all over Scotland,
so
laying the salt. Brilliant that they have these fantastic names. They're going to need them if it's -15 up there, right?
Absolutely.
They're going to be very busy. Kirsty, thanks very much indeed. Well, we've asked you whether you've been impacted by Storm Goretti and asked you to share your pictures and your experiences out there, whether it's with snow or rain or that wind, all things weather. Do keep them coming in. mornings@sky.uk is the address. And some of you have responded and sent in some pictures.
Oh, nice. Let's have a look.
Show us what your day looks like. So this is Sharon's garden, I think, in Stow-on-the-Wold. That's quite a lot of thick footprints there. Plenty of snow there.
Absolutely. Well, Dean in Measham emailed us at 6:30. He's working from home, so he's avoided getting out in that snowed-in car. I mean, that's pretty deep. That's a good few inches and up the tyres. Thank you for that picture, Dean. And, of course, as Anna says, send any more of the pictures that you have of how your day is starting, especially now the sun has come up, so we can have some of those beautiful pictures, to mornings@sky.uk.
It was just like glued to it.
Now to the US, and 2 people have been shot and injured by Border Patrol officers in the state of Oregon.
Yeah, the incident in Portland comes just a day after a woman was killed by an immigration officer in the city of Minneapolis.
Well, the shooting in Portland left a man and a woman in hospital. The Department of Homeland Security claims that Border Patrol agents were conducting what they call a targeted vehicle stop at the time. Oregon's Governor, Tina Kotek, blamed the Trump administration.
We are all shaken and outraged by another terrible, unnecessary, violent event instigated by the reckless agenda of the Trump administration. This time in our own state, in our largest city, coming just one day after the tragedy in Minnesota. While the details of the incident remain limited, one thing is very clear. When a president endorses tearing families apart and attempts to govern through fear and hate rather than shared values, you foster an environment of lawlessness and recklessness. Trust is essential to maintaining community safety and the rule of law. Federal agents at the direction of the Department of Homeland Security are shattering trust.
Well, the US Vice President, J.D. Vance, has defended the agents who shot dead 37-year-old Nicole Good in Minneapolis earlier in the week.
Yeah, he said that she tried to ram him with her car and he opened fire in self-defence, but it's a version of events strongly contested by community leaders. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has this report.
Your soul needs to grapple with the fact that you murdered a mother yesterday. Her son is 6 years old. His name is Emerson. Her name was Renee.
The name of Renee Nicole Good, shot dead by an ICE immigration agent, is echoing across Minneapolis. Reflection and resistance. A focus for the fury at Donald Trump's wider migrant crackdown. Anthony watched the horror unfold from his balcony.
It's so close where the car eventually ended up crashing.
Yeah. He wants to remain anonymous because he has a government job, but shows me video he filmed of the moment it happened.
Right there.
So this is her car?
Yeah. So that's when she kind of tries to get out the way, and then she crashes.
You knew that she'd been shot at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can hear in your video someone shouting she's been shot in the face?
Exactly, yeah. That's what I heard too.
The timestamp on this video shows it's 9 minutes before first responders remove her from the car. They attempt resuscitation on the roadside. It's another 10 minutes before an ambulance arrives. A few doors away, Aidan was also watching.
You've got a very clear view of this.
Yeah, I've got
I
was right in front.
You're pretty convinced that she was trying to drive away from the police officers?
She turned away from them. She was trying to flee, no doubt in my mind. It is more okay for a civilian to panic and try to escape than it is for a law enforcement agent to panic and kill someone.
But that's not the viewpoint in Washington. Qualified empathy from the Vice President.
What you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy, while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making.
At the start of the week, the Trump administration had launched a massive immigration operation in Minnesota, sending 2,000 officers onto the streets here against the wishes of the majority. It was already an atmosphere ripe for confrontation. People are being urged to protest peacefully. But peace here feels precarious. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Minneapolis.
Story we'll keep a close eye across here on Sky News throughout the day. Well, to the Philippines now, and at least one person is known to have died, and 38 others are missing after a landfill collapse.
Yeah, reports say that many are trapped in an avalanche of rubbish from a waste segregation facility. An employee at the landfill said teams were concerned about the height of the garbage for several years, and local media report that rescue team efforts have been hampered by hazardous conditions. Well, our Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith has more details.
Absolutely horrific, and the pictures that are coming out from this village really show the scale of that landfill site, and it just must have been absolutely horrendous for the people who lived through it and for the rescuers who are still working to try and recover people. This took place yesterday afternoon, local time actually, and you can see from the pictures that this was a waste processing and a landfill site, and there's this big mountain of garbage and waste essentially, and you can see from the images and indeed also from what the local authorities have said that just side of it giving way to this terrible avalanche of garbage that just came smashing down and into a sort of a warehouse of sorts. And the authorities have said that that was a warehouse where workers were working to shift through that rubbish to separate it into recycling and non-recycling. It's not clear yet whether some of those affected were other members of the public over and above the workers at that plant. It's also not clear whether there's other sort of housing in the local area that's been affected too, but just absolutely horrific. Authorities have been working through the night to try and find people who are still trapped, but very sadly, experts say in cases like this, the chances of survival are actually reasonably low because people are buried in such hazardous material, and if there are pockets of air, they're likely to quite quickly fill up with methane gas that's sort of released by that rubbish, sadly making the chances of survival quite small. There's a little bit of discrepancy about the figures, how many are missing, how many are rescued. The police department and the local mayor coming out with slightly different numbers, but what we do know is that one worker died on her way to hospital earlier today, which is local authorities saying very, very tragic indeed. Interestingly, they've also put out a statement saying that they want to assure the public and the families that they're doing everything they can to protect what's being called safety, transparency and accountability. And I think that's really important because there will be questions as to how this could have happened. The Philippines produces a lot of garbage. It also receives a lot of garbage from other countries in the region. And there has been a past history of some of these sites not being managed well enough. There was a huge landslip in a waste site like this in 2000 that killed hundreds of people. So there will be questions to follow about how this has been allowed to happen. Were procedures and safety standards good enough? But for now, the search for survivors continues.
That's Helen Ann Smith reporting there from Beijing on that landslip in the Philippines. We'll keep an eye on that, of course, throughout the day here. Now here, Storm Goretti has arrived, bringing with it low temperatures and treacherous travel conditions. So let's get the advice now what to do if you do find yourself out on the roads. Darren Clark joins us from National Highways, and we're also going to speak to Peter Bassett, who's a tree surgeon from Cornwall in one of the worst affected areas. We'll start with Darren, though, from the Highways Agency. Darren, thanks for being with us. What is the advice to any motorists who need to get out there today?
Simple message, TRIP is what National Highways is promoting. So top up your oil, your coolant, your screen wash, make sure you've got plenty of fuel. You rest if you're going to travel, if you need to travel, make certain you're taking regular breaks during your journey. inspect your tyres, inspect your windscreens, your lights, your wiper blades, inspect yourself, make certain that you're fit for the journey. And obviously prepare. We've been preparing over the last 24 hours for severe weather, but we ask people to do the same as well. So if you do need to travel, look at the weather forecasts for the route that you're taking, plan your route, plan breaks, make certain you carry enough provisions, emergency kit, your phone's topped up, you're hydrated, you've got liquids, you've got food, you've got warm clothes. Just be prepared for the fact that it is bad. It has been bad weather out there over the last 24 hours. It's a multi-hazard, multifaceted storm. So it has presented everybody lots of different challenges over the last day or so.
Yeah, and you say if you choose to travel. I mean, there are some areas where they're advising people not to go out and about, aren't there? Give us an update on how the roads are looking.
In general, certainly the national highways roads are running. We have had some challenging conditions overnight, as I say, because it is has been a multi-hazard event. We've done over 66,000 miles in our winter fleet in the last 24 hours, and that equates to over 1,100 journeys. So we've certainly had our resources out there doing everything we can to keep roads moving, keep people safe. But yes, it has been an exceptional weather event, and that has meant we have been working really hard.
And just talk to us about the advice for anyone who does find themselves out and about on icy roads, on snowy roads. I mean, is it to turn back? Have you got any advice for how people should try and drive? I mean, cautiously, I guess, is the most important thing.
We certainly do say to people to travel to the conditions, and as you've just said, some cases you might think actually this isn't ideal. Certainly, we've done everything we're doing everything we can to keep our roads safe and operational. But certainly, in general, on wider roads and that, yes, certainly untreated roads, on local council roads and that not everywhere is salted and treated and ploughed. So yeah, we would certainly say, drive cautiously, drive slow, consider it's going to take you a lot longer to stop. No sudden actions when you're braking or turning or accelerating. And if you don't need to make that journey, stay at home, stay safe.
Yeah, it's good advice, actually, because people forget how to drive on the ice. I stepped out the other day and it was icy, and I was like, wow,
yes,
hold on a minute.
I've had
I haven't done this for a minute now. Yeah, really appreciate that, Darryl. Good stuff, thank you.
Yeah, so let's bring in Peter Bassett, who's from Kernow Trees and Gardens, who will have a bit of give us a sense of what's going on in Cornwall, which had the really high winds overnight. There was a red weather warning there, wasn't there, Peter? Tell us, for you, what kind of a night it was.
Yeah, it was a very busy night with the winds. It was hectic, really. I've had multiple reports of trees down. So, yeah, we've currently got power outage here as well. So, I'm talking to you on my phone rather than the laptop.
Yeah, I was just looking, actually, Kamali and Peter, the National Highways is saying that the A30 in Cornwall is closed in both directions between Longrock and Longstone because of a large number of fallen trees, and that can be really tough, can't it, for anyone trying to get around?
And is that because the winds brought them down, or the snowfall on top of them? What's the situation?
That'll be the wind.
Right.
Majority have mostly wind that's affected here, and the saturated grounds as well from the rain.
So are you guys going out then today to do some clearance? I mean, once I guess you get power and you get connected back to the outside world properly.
Yeah, no, we're straight on out after the call. So, yeah. It's a busy day.
What are conditions like now? Obviously, it really packed a punch overnight. How's it looking out there now? Is it dangerous for you to do the work, trying to make these trees safe?
Yeah, the winds died down around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Yeah, it was continuous, I suppose, but for where we were, it was quieting down quite a bit. So yeah, it's calmer now. We've just got a bit of rain, but yeah, certainly fine to be out for us anyway. Yeah.
Well, good stuff out there. Good luck out there.
Yeah, good luck with it,
Peter. Stay safe, please. And Thank you very much for joining us, and to you as well, Darren. Thanks both for being with us, and all the best to you guys out there trying to make sure that we can move around the country as much as possible.
Yeah, really helpful advice. And you're kind of torn, aren't you, between thinking, oh, how lovely it's snowing, and thinking, oh, my goodness, how am I going to get around?
I was thinking about going sledding if it snowed.
Were you? Will you take your son or just go on your own?
Just me.
I can't believe that too. Plenty more on the weather, of course, throughout the morning. In the meantime, though, some good news for pub landlords, because it's understood the government's planning to stand down plans to hike their business taxes. We're going to be talking about that in just a moment.
President Trump is expected to hold a meeting with oil execs at the White House later on, just days, of course, after the US captured the leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro.
Yeah, it's thought representatives from Chevron, ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips will attend the meeting to discuss opportunities for investment. Venezuela holds the world's largest reserves of heavy oil, and Trump has been open about his plans to enable US access.
We're taking billions and billions of dollars worth of oil, and it'll be hundreds of billions of dollars. It'll be trillions of dollars, but we're going to be there till we straighten out the country. We'll see how the country's doing, but we'll be running the oil. We're meeting tomorrow with all of the big oil executives. We're going to be right here in the White House. We're going to meet with the, biggest oil people in the world. They're all coming here. The top 14 companies are coming here. They're going to go in. They're going to rebuild the whole oil infrastructure. They're going to spend at least $100 billion. And it's an unbelievable oil that they have and an unbelievable quality of oil and amount of oil.
Well, our business and economics correspondent Paul Kelso is here with us. An unbelievable oil, an unbelievable amount of oil.
And an unbelievable amount of oil company money that President Trump appears to be spending in advance of this meeting at the White House with these oil executives. But this meeting does matter because President Trump has been unapologetic, hasn't he, from the start. The oil is at the heart of this Venezuelan adventure. We've been doing a bit of work with the data and forensics team, looking at the state of the oil industry and how he's looking to leverage it. So why don't we take a walk through Donald Trump's plans, because he's clearly reasoning that control of Venezuela's vast reserves of oil will enable him to dictate the country's future, enrich American companies and send a message to his adversaries. So let's have a look at how Donald Trump is already leveraging Venezuelan oil, who the winners and losers might be, and the challenges in reviving the industry. Even before the capture of Nicolas Maduro, a naval blockade had given the US a chokehold on Venezuelan oil. This map shows a position of 11 US Navy vessels, including an aircraft carrier, on January the 3rd. This was the day Nicolas Maduro was seized. You can see Caracas, the capital there, the Jose Industrial Complex. A lot of the oil flows in and out of there. So the aim was to prevent US, the so-called sanctioned fleet, moving sanctioned oil to Venezuela's few remaining customers. This shows us the location of some of those just yesterday. You see lots of boats marooned effectively because they can't move, some on the move through the Caribbean. We know this blockade has not been impregnable. 2 shadow tankers were seized earlier this week, one in the Caribbean, one in the North Atlantic with RAF support. Now, there are some exceptions, and they're American, perhaps no surprise there. The US imports 20% of Venezuela's oil exports, and that's produced by Chevron, which was exempted from sanctions by Joe Biden. We can see the path of some of these Chevron ships, as we've called them, some in Venezuela, but some on their way back from refineries on the Gulf Coast of the US, where the heavy oil that Venezuela produces is processed. So if Venezuelan oil isn't supposed to be leaving, apart from on those authorised ships, where is it? Now, well, ship tracking data compiled by an analyst called Kepler has shown us that a lot of it is effectively in storage at sea, in limbo on tankers. Now, this chart shows the amount of Venezuelan oil stored at sea. Ordinarily, not very much at all. The last month, it has jumped. The yellow area here is China. Chinese ships are off China. China's the largest customer of Venezuelan oil. Took about 75–80% of it, around 4% of Chinese oil imports, in fact. Now, that could dry up if the US is in control. The blue area worth saying here is ships off Venezuela. The green is Malaysia. There's a big refining industry there. The red, interesting, is West Africa, though most analysts think these are ships spoofing their locations to hide their actual whereabouts. The rest is unknown. That points again to this shadow fleet. Now, the onshore storage in Venezuela is filling up too, though, as these images tell us, like much of the country's oil infrastructure, that storage is in a decrepit state after years of underinvestment. Just point to the difference between these two images from the Puerto Miranda storage facility, the satellite images, May 2022. You can see these storage tanks, which rise and fall depending on the amount of oil in them. The ones with the white roofs are considered by analysts probably to be in working order and moving. But if they're dark-coloured, red, black, that indicates decay, rust, and probably not in use. If we come forward 3 years, this picture taken on New Year's Eve, the bulk of them appear to be decayed. And that is in common with most people's assessments of the state of the Venezuelan oil industry. Underinvestment and neglect has reduced production. And a good measure of the decline, one other we can see here, the number of oil rigs, drilling rigs that you use to plumb new wells, how many are in operation? Well, the latest data from analysts suggests that there are only 2. That compares to more than 60 a decade ago. You haven't got drilling rigs, you can't expand the industry. We don't have the data to 2021 and 2022, which explains that. Now, this all doesn't bode well for boosting production. Donald Trump there was talking about hundreds of billions of dollars to be made. Well, you've got to get it out of the ground and you've got to get it refined first. If we look at this is Venezuelan oil production, go back a decade before the Maduro presidency, more than 3 billion barrels a day. Huge decline subsequently. To boost production, to get from just less than a million barrels a day today to 2 million, looking at maybe a decade and $110 billion of investment to get there. So no wonder that Donald Trump wants those oil companies to cluster round. He's banking, you would imagine, on his word and the promise of profits to be made on getting there. But they're going to want real guarantees about the legitimacy of this operation, the security of contracts before they flood in.
Because it's a huge outlay for them.
A huge outlay, and of course American companies have already been burned. They were in Venezuela operating when Hugo Chavez was elected. Many of their assets were seized. That's part of the justification Donald Trump has used here. So no question, where there's oil, there will be people willing to invest. Whether you wait and see whether Exxon and the rest will follow, but I'm sure they'll be making the right noises with the president today.
And he will be putting forward his art of the deal to try and get them signed up, won't he?
It'll be a really interesting meeting, that one, anyway. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Now, Russia says it's carried out airstrikes yet again overnight in Ukraine. It's reported that Russia targeted energy facilities and a drone manufacturing site, claiming to be a response to an attempted attack, which was never proven, on one of Putin's residences. Kyiv has called that accusation a lie. Now, the Russian military confirmed that they used a hypersonic missile to hit one of the targets.
Now here, some good news for pub landlords. It's understood the government's planning to U-turn over plans to hike their business taxes.
Yeah, but there are growing calls for it to be extended to other hospitality businesses. It's understood there could be an announcement, though, on this within a few days. Let's see what else we can understand by bringing in our political correspondent, Amanda Acas. Morning to you, Amanda. So, I mean, what do we know about this? I tried to get some of this from Anna Turley, who told me absolutely nothing. Not a Treasury Minister, so she can't tell me when it's going to be done, but they're going to try and help.
Yes, I think what the government's really trying to do is signal that they are going to change tack on this, but they haven't yet exactly set out exactly how or how much it's going to cost. But they were facing a revolt of some 30 to 40 backbench MPs in a vote on Monday, and I think that's what they really wanted to try and head off at the pass, because there has been a real sort of growing campaign of opposition against this. Over Christmas, 1,000 pubs were banning Labour MPs from the premises. We've had the Tories campaigning hard on this reform too. And I think there's also a bit of a sense that potentially the Treasury hadn't anticipated quite how hard pubs and other venues were going to be hit by the changes announced in the budget, which, just to take you back to November, effectively pubs have been benefiting from rates relief since the pandemic, because obviously that hit them so hard. So the Chancellor announced that the 75% relief on rates they were getting was going to go down to 40% and then be scrapped altogether in April. But at the same time, that coincided with every 3 years there's a revaluation of the property values of these businesses, which affects the rates they were going to pay. All of that combined meant that pubs by 2030 were going to face a 76% increase in the rates that they were going to pay. Pubs saying many of them were going to go out of business. The Treasury now saying, OK, we're going to do more to help. We don't know exactly what that will be, but potentially it's going to be a change in the calculation of those rates. And also, we're told some kind of changes to licensing, red tape, opening hours, the ability to sell pubs outside on pints outside on pavements and all of that kind of thing. Now, as you say, other areas in the hospitality industry, hotels, they're facing a 115% increase, so much higher than pubs. Other cafes, live music venues all saying, well, what about us? Tories saying this is all too little, too late. They would say that, of course. This is another victory for them, really, another U-turn forced on the government, the 7th big U-turn after 18 months in office. Quite extraordinary, really. I mean, Anna Turley earlier, the chair of the Labour Party, saying, no, this isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of confident government. Shows that we're listening. Of course, that's their spin on it. But just the other thing to kind of point out here is that this isn't without cost. I mean, we don't know exactly what it is or how much it'll be. It's thought it'll be around 300 million pounds cost, on top of a fund they've already got out there, more than 4 billion, to try and help these sectors. And this is money that goes towards councils, towards social care, towards the government funding more broadly. So that's also something I think to bear in mind. But at the moment, the campaign to save the pubs is on the day.
Isn't Anna Turley said she's going to go to her local pub tonight, so she's not banned from that one, at least.
She'll take a toast, I'm sure.
We'll get more details on that, I'm sure, in the days ahead. Thanks so much, Amanda. Thank you.
Now, reports say that the first government building in Iran has been set on fire as part of this latest wave of anti-government protests. Protesters have been seen marching through the streets of the capital as well as other cities.
Yeah, state media has accused who they call terrorist agents of the US and Israel of sparking the violence. Well, let's bring in now global affairs journalist Tara Kangalu. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for coming in. I wonder what you make of the latest reports about protests, the 12th day of protests, and it feels like they're spreading to more cities. Are they gaining in support, do you think? What's your take on what's happening?
Absolutely. I've been covering Iran for the past 15 years, and one thing I can say that if we remember what happened in 2009, the Green Movement, the masses that we saw, what happened last night in Tehran and other cities, according to sources on the ground, despite the internet blackout that I know we're going to talk about, has been similar to that. And those were unprecedented. But one thing that has stood out, and this is from sources on the ground, not just from yesterday, but the past few days, is that the government crackdown, which the Islamic regime is known to be violently cracking down and stifling protests, has been minimal, which is interesting. Again, that deaths have been reported. We are yet to see the impact of the crackdown last night, what it has been, but what that, in comparison to other protests, tell us is that the government and the regime is at its weakest. People on the streets are chanting, asking the police to join them as well. And as you saw, and the reports are indicating, and I know we're going to get more images throughout the day, government buildings have been burned, not just one, but across the country, as well as flags and quite frankly, police cars. Just before our segment, I saw police cars in the city of Yazd. So unprecedented.
I mean, the thing is with this, it's kind of hard to understate how seismic this could be. You're talking about the 2009 protests, where everyone will have seen on their social media that green symbol that was meant to be the moment. Of course, that was repressed, put down. Many people died. We saw protests back in 2022 also were put down. What's the difference now? I mean, you talked about the weakness of the Iranian regime. Is there a Trump effect as well? What did you say? Locked and loaded if protesters are killed? Their 12-day war with Israel, in which they lost. And also, we're hearing from the president, signs of him wanting to talk about, dialogue with protesters. It's something we've never heard from the regime.
In some ways, again, speaking with folks on the ground, including some journalists, by the way, who've been imprisoned by the government, no one has any faith in what comes out of, the regime and the government. And the difference that you asked, which is a great question, categorically right now, and this is, I think, significant, and we need to emphasize this, Iran is a country of 90 million people with different ideologies, ethnic backgrounds, beliefs, social classes. All of them are now united. On the streets, you see people with the hijab, without the hijab, old, young, rich, poor, coming together, categorically telling the world we don't want this regime. And they are loud, and that is their demand. And that's what they're saying. And yes, what comes out of Washington and the White House has a profound impact.
Well, yes, I was going to ask you about that, because you said that the regime has not been as tough as in previous protests.
Yes.
I mean, we have had reports of deaths.
Of
we
course,
have had reports of injuries.
Absolutely.
But do you think that's the Trump effect? I mean, he gave this message to the regime saying, if you kill protesters, we're locked and loaded, didn't he? And he's repeated a threat. He's talked about hitting Iran hard if protesters are killed.
Absolutely.
Is that making a difference to how the regime is behaving, do you think?
I think it has more to do with how weak the regime is. I want to point out to the fact that the foreign minister of Iran has just gone to Lebanon, and I've been talking to sources and journalists in Lebanon. There is really nothing on the agenda. He has left with his family. And in the interview... In the interview that you mentioned, Donald Trump had with Hannity, where he reiterated the United States' readiness in going all in full force against the regime, he once again mentioned that we're ready to support the Iranian people. So that has an effect on the masses coming out and, again, risking their lives. This is important. These are peaceful protesters. Over and over, they've risked their lives. But also, he said something else, the president. He said, Khamenei, the question was whether or not he's going to go to Russia. The president said, there might be elsewhere that he would go to. So these conversations are ongoing. The regime is at its weakest because they're getting pressure from the outside, that being Washington. But also, these protests are unprecedented. The scale of the people on the streets and what they've achieved just in the last 24 hours is unprecedented.
Tara, I can sense your reticence not wanting to put too much credit on what Donald Trump has done, but I think we can see the cumulative effect of where we are now, right?
Absolutely.
Years and years and years of
Yes.
sanctions on Iran that's completely decimated the economy. Talk to us about the region. So the foreign minister's gone to Lebanon. Of course, the region is essentially set up as being between Saudi Arabia and Iran. What's the region thinking at this point as to what can happen?
That's a great question, but I appreciate what you said about not counting so much on what comes out of Washington, because we have seen the behavior of Washington, what has happened in Venezuela and elsewhere around the world. So I really want to underscore this, that the Iranian people are very well capable of determining their own future. They don't want foreign interference, but they want support from the international community. So thank you for bringing that up. Regionally, I have sources in Saudi Arabia, speaking with them very closely. They are, along with Qatar and Oman, trying to cool things down, because the last thing that the Gulf region wants is another war, another conflict. There were reports, not speculations, that the Omani foreign minister is going to Iran next week. We have to wait and see, because this story is moving fast and it's quick. And Lebanon, you mentioned, we're at a very critical point there. Hezbollah is set to dismantle. That's important. And what happens in Iran has a huge impact there, and therefore in Israel, and quite frankly, the whole region.
Entire region. All right, Tara, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much. Appreciate the reporting. We'll speak to you again, because as you say, this story is going to continue on day 12 now, and it will continue, I'm sure, for the coming days.
Yeah, very interesting to get your take. Thanks very much indeed.
Appreciate it.
Now then, we're going to look closer to home and take a look at the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, Storm Goretti will move away today, but disruption is still possible in the south. Various yellow and amber warnings remain in place for wind, rain, snow and ice, but the worst of the weather was yesterday evening and overnight. So the windy south of Britain will see outbreaks of rain, sleet and snow spreading eastwards this morning, with severe gales near the Channel coast easing. Elsewhere, there'll be a bright or sunny spells with a scattering of showers, some wintry. Icy stretches are likely, especially in the north, and it's going to be cold overall. Eastern England can expect a wet afternoon too, with any snow fairly limited and unlikely to settle. Elsewhere, it'll be drier overall, but there'll be showers around, some of them wintry, and Scotland and Wales look most at risk. The rain over eastern England will mostly clear overnight, while showers affect exposed coastal areas.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
You're not going to get your toboggan, I don't think.
No, it's not going to happen, is it?
I don't think. It doesn't sound like it.
Next year. It's always next year, isn't there?
Swimming trunks, you could try those.
What?
Swimming
I beg your
trunks.
pardon?
In the snow?
Well, it's going to rain, isn't it?
Oh.
I see what you mean. Really going to be snow.
We could just get an umbrella.
Well, where
rather than
we
trunks.
are.
Right, thanks. Are we talking about the weather or the sport?
Oh, do you know what? Last night, awful. I mean, those conditions in North London were horrendous. Premier League leaders Arsenal drawing with Liverpool last night. But you know, when you do things and you think, I wish I hadn't done that, I think Gabriele Martinelli might be feeling a little bit like that this morning, wishing he hadn't reacted to this.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent. I've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction. I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. What you see a lot of here are military machines, soldiers, devastation and destruction. What you see very little of are the locals, the Gazans, the people who used to live here, the ghosts of this town. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered. You have the black flag, you have the yellow flag. People were kidnapped.
Inside this convoy, prisoners released by Israel in exchange for their hostages. The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners. There were tears and there was defiance. This land has been farmed for hundreds of years, but now it's a scene of conflict. Israeli settlers have come to this area to seize land.
They've taken the land that I inherited from my father, and my father inherited from his father.
What would happen if you entered it?
Oh, we'll be shot.
This is a place where the past is cherished, but the future is feared. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Well, both Jackie and Anna were watching the big game last night.
I watched half of it.
At least half. Before we went to snooze. What do you think?
Take off, did it?
There
it
was
kind
no.
of like it was a bit sort of cancelled each other out sort of thing.
Damp squib.
It was very frustrating night for Arsenal, and it was very damp. The rain was absolutely hideous last night. Here was an opportunity for Arsenal to go 8 points clear at the top of the league, which would have been such a lovely cushion between them and Manchester City and Aston Villa, and it just didn't materialise. They just didn't have any bite in the first half, despite completely dominating that first half. They should have been better, and in fact, against the run of play, it was Liverpool who had the best opportunity. Conor Bradley, with the best opportunity of that first half against the run of play. It was a mistake by Arsenal, and then he chips and hits the bar. And
unfortunately.
Yeah, really unfortunate for them that they didn't go in, and I think a real huge sigh of relief for Arsenal fans. Second half comes and they really dig in, Liverpool, and they are so much better in the second half. We've got Florian Wirtz dancing into the box. He is bumped off the ball by Leandro Trossard, and I think they can catch.
Penalty!
Unlucky, yeah, to not get a penalty.
I love it. Get on.
Very unlucky.
Get on with it.
Yeah, get on with it. The real talking point of the match, though, was Gabriel Martinelli and his reaction to Conor Bradley going down injured. So Conor Bradley, something goes with Conor Bradley.
It's painful.
It's been a frustrating night for Arsenal. They want to get on with it. Yeah, we get it. But you don't do this. Throws the ball on him and then tries to manhandle him a little bit.
Tries to knee him off the pitch.
So he can get on with the game. And I think, Slot said afterwards he probably thought there was time wasting going on there because it happens so much. It happens all the time. And obviously it was a very serious injury. Now, he has said that he's already apologised. He's apologised on Instagram. Conor and I have messaged. I've already apologised to him. I really didn't understand. He was seriously injured in the heat of the moment. I want to say I'm deeply sorry for reacting, sending Conor all my best again.
So when I woke up this morning, I got a text from a friend saying how badly that looked from Martinelli, and it was completely outrageous. I think it's good of him to say sorry publicly. He probably had to, right?
He realised that, he'd made a really bad mistake there. And,
especially given that he has been injured, hasn't he? He's
hurt himself, yeah.
Left on crutches, didn't he?
Yeah, he left initially on the stretcher and then left the ground itself on crutches with a knee brace. And I guess Liverpool will inform us today after he's had a scan how bad it is. But Arsenal had a little bit of an opportunity towards the end, funnily enough, after that happened, to get something from the game. Literally, their first shots on target came in injury time in that first half. I mean, Liverpool were really good at stifling them, and I suppose it's a lesson to anyone. If you play Arsenal and you don't want them to have any shots on target, do what we've just done. I mean, it's very unusual for Arsenal not to score, especially at home, where they're on a run of 7 consecutive wins at home in the Premier League.
I mean, I think both sides will kind of be happy with a point now, where they're like, Arsenal would not want to lose at home, and Liverpool, I guess, are showing a bit of resilience from like a bad run prior to Christmas.
Yeah, I think it really showed a real bit of grit from Liverpool, and also Arsenal. OK, you've dropped points. You could have had that cushion, could have, should have, would have, and you didn't. But it could have been way worse last night because Liverpool maybe walked away from North London thinking we should have walked away. We could have nicked that. But I think both managers, pretty satisfied. I mean, filthy, absolutely filthy conditions, and I think that does affect, the game and the quality of the game. I mean, they are professional footballers. But at the end of the day, they're humans as well.
Well, that's the other report has got as well, that it wasn't, the quality was way off for top of the table.
Well, yeah, it didn't quite hit the mark, did it? During that match last night, the big talking point as well, because obviously very few bits of action to talk about from that match, and Gabriel Martinelli providing the drama there. But Roy Keane was talking on Sky, and they were having a chat, as everybody seems to be. Who's going to get the job at Manchester United? They're looking for an interim manager. At the moment, it's Darren Fletcher, but an interim manager will be either Michael Carrick or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They're also, I think, possibly talking to one other person, but those two seem to be in the frame just to take them to the end of the season.
Okay.
But Roy Keane, who's going to get the job properly, permanently at the end of the season and take Manchester United back to the heights they're kind of expecting? Who do you reckon?
I have Gareth Southgate.
Well,
our floor manager who wants to do it.
Gareth Southgate is a name in the frame that's been bandied around, and I'm not sure too many United fans are going for that.
No, they're not up for
Roy
that.
Keane thinks it should be Eddie Howe.
I'd go with Eddie Howe.
Why?
I like him. No, I like what he's done. His management. He's managed a lot of games. When his teams are at it, they play good football. I know it's not for everyone. He'll have his critics. I like what he's done at Newcastle. Even at Bournemouth, he's managed 700-800 games. He's still a young man. I love his calmness. I think sometimes Man United maybe need a little bit of that. We've seen the previous manager going in. I like people with emotion. Obviously, I'm quite an emotional person. But I think his calmness, what he's done at Newcastle, Champions League a couple of times, winning a cup, I'd be happy to see him go in there.
Well, listen to Keane,
It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Would he want to go in there? It's a bit of a poison chalice right now, that's the question. But someone who's confident, very happy in his own skin, very confident in his abilities to do the job, knows his business, knows how to and make players better.
It's going to cost United a lot, though, because I'm sure he's under contract at Newcastle, isn't he? They'll have to pay out again.
Will he want to leave Newcastle? I mean, will he want to go into a job that, essentially is now a coaching job, as they made it quite clear to Amorim? Or will he need more power than that?
Very difficult, haven't they, for the next person that will come in? But Eddie Howe's not a bad shout.
I'll take your word for it.
I'll concede that. Roy Keane knows what he's talking about, Jackie. Thank you for that.
He does.
See you again next
More
hour.
from you later, Jackie. Thanks very much indeed. Stay with us for all the top stories that are coming next.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Hello and a very good morning. It's 9 o'clock. This is Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. I'm Anna.
And I'm Kamali. Thanks for starting your day with us. Here's how we're looking.
A weather bomb hits the UK. Storm Goretti brings snow, ice and 99-mile-an-hour winds, leaving tens of thousands without power.
Tension and fear across the United States. In Oregon, 2 people have been shot and injured by federal agents who say they were carrying out a targeted stop a day after a woman is killed by federal agents in Minneapolis.
One person is dead and 38 missing after a landfill collapse sends an avalanche of rubbish into a village in the Philippines.
And coming up later this hour, we're going to speak to William Sitwell, the MasterChef judge and landlord, about the government's plans to U-turn over increases in business rates.
Plus, ahead of the BAFTAs, what movies to look out for in 2026. Hello, a very good morning. So, Storm Goretti has hit the UK, bringing extreme rain, wind, snow and ice. Winds of up to 99 miles an hour have been recorded, and there's major travel disruption out there. Well, the Met Office has issued fresh weather warnings for snow and ice for much of Scotland and the north of England on Sunday, coming into force from 2 a.m.
Yeah, the weather continues. British Airways has cancelled more than 50 flights from Heathrow today. East Midlands has reopened, as has Birmingham, but is now running a reduced service. Meanwhile, schools across the Midlands and Wales will be closed today, as well as in Scotland.
And we feel a bit guilty. We're in a nice, warm
guilty.
studio. It is warm in here, but not out there. Tens of thousands of homes, meanwhile, are without power, and there are warnings to stay indoors. So let's find out what it's like from, at least in Derbyshire. Our correspondent Charlotte Leeming is shivering in the Hope Valley right now. So Charlotte, tell us how it is there.
Yeah, that amber warning has ended at 9 o'clock here, but people, you know, once it's got light, surveying sort of how much snow has fallen, whether they can get from A to B, because we're in a very remote rural area. Some of the main roads running quite well, and in part that's thanks to the farmers around here who help out the council by gritting and ploughing some of the routes so that people can still get to work and to school. We know some schools will be opening a little later today, a staggered opening if you like, so that people get a chance to get there and there's not too many people on the roads at once. I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous. It's a winter wonderland here. More tricky if you do have a long journey, but the advice as ever is not to make unnecessary journeys. If you can work from home, then that's the best advice. Now, just behind us is the railway route, the Transpennine. Normally that would have trains running. They're not running today, and Transpennine have said to all their customers and passengers that will not run today. There won't be bus replacements either. That will resume tomorrow, so that's out of the question. Also, the main road networks between Greater Manchester and Sheffield, they're closed as well. Last night there was a big lorry fire on the M62, so that was closed, that Transpennine route. So very tricky conditions. We've got disruption, of course, in the Midlands. They've had a lot of snow. As you mentioned earlier, 2 big airports were closed for a time, and Birmingham and East Midlands, they're now up and running, but of course there will be some sort of backlog. They need to get back on track, so they're urging all their customers to again look at the airline operator for the very latest. But we've got hardy individuals here who are used to the snow, and we've seen some people tomorrow morning. They're setting off on a 100-mile race from here to North Yorkshire, and yeah, they're pretty cool about all of that.
They are.
Oh, my goodness.
Very nice.
Well, good luck to them. That's extraordinary. Charlotte, it does look beautiful, but I know it's freezing, so do go and get warm.
I just wondered, Charlotte, I was going to ask you this last hour. I wonder if you could step out of the way and get your camera operator just to give us a little shot of that background, because it is lovely where you are in the Dales.
Winter wonderland, isn't it?
Beautiful. Look at that. It is a lovely part of the world if you know it well. I think you mentioned that Snakes Pass, not far from there, is closed because of the treacherous conditions. It's treacherous in dry weather.
Is that right?
But yeah, trying to get through there in the snow is a terrible idea, which is good news that it's closed. Charlotte, really appreciate it. Thank you. And thanks to your camera op as well for showing us the Dales. Always lovely to see, especially when the snow has fallen. Right. Our meteorologist, Kirsty McCabe, has joined us. Kirsty, morning to you.
Morning.
Perfect person to talk us through what is going on out there. So, look, we're seeing the snow falling in parts of the country. Not here, despite my app on my phone telling me it's going to snow here in London.
Apps can't replace weather.
We need you.
Yes.
That's why we need Kirsty.
But it was
exactly.
definitely a wild night, wasn't it?
Oh, really wild night. I think in the south, the wind's been very much the focus. Further north across the country, still the cold, the ice and some snow in places. And in between, we've had this awkward mix of rain, sleet and snow working its way across the country. So we've got some graphics we can take a look at to show you what's been happening. Because it was actually Storm Goretti, which was named by Meteo France, because the biggest impact from the winds was across the south. So through the English Channel, Alsace had 99-mile-per-hour gusts. That's the highest officially confirmed. But the strong winds working their way through the Channel, affecting northern France, the Channel Islands as well. So widely, we saw gusts 80, 90 miles per hour as we went through yesterday evening. The winds easing down, though, as we head through the rest of the day, which is good news, but still where we've got snow around, it still could be temporary, some blizzard conditions, because it is still been quite a wild morning. So they were the strongest wind gusts as we went through the night last night. The focus now, though, is on recovering from all that wet and wintry weather. We have got the low-pressure Storm Goretti, which you can see here. It developed explosively, which is why you hear the term weather bomb being talked about. It's moving away, but another one waiting out in the Atlantic to come in for the weekend. So Saturday, a very cold and icy day. Sunday could see a return of some disruptive snow, which is why we still have all these weather warnings out in force. So if I stand in the middle, you can see both things. So we've still got multiple yellow weather warnings out. No amber or reds at the moment. We'll keep an eye on that through the day. But it's the snow and the ice, because we've still got the remnants of this really awkward mix of rain, sleet and snow moving its way across southern parts of Britain. And further north, we've got freezing fog, we've got ice, we've still got further wintry showers, especially for northeast Scotland. So still the cold weather hanging on for now. But next week, I think, will be a very different story.
Right, Kirsty, I do appreciate that. Thank you very much for that update. Roads are treacherous out there. There's lots of travel disruptions in there, Anna, as well. As I said, some of the airports have reopened, but there are flights cancelled. Now, if you've been affected by the storm, please let us know. Share your pictures and experiences of being out there in this weather. You can send us pictures to mornings@sky.uk. And I'm pleased to say that some have already done so.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the pictures that have come in. Sharon, for example, has sent in a picture of her garden. This is in Stow-on-the-Wold. A good layering of snow there. You can see some good thick footprints in it.
It's like Santa's been through there. Dean emailed us at half past 6 because that's Dean's car, I imagine, stuck in the snow. So he is going to be working from home. Pyjamas, I am sure, are still on. Dean, thanks very much for sending the pictures, and send some more in if you would like. We'll take a look at them throughout the day here on Sky News.
Now to the US, and 2 people have been shot and injured by Border Patrol officers in the state of Oregon.
Yeah, the incident in Portland comes just a day after a woman was killed by an immigration officer in the city of Minneapolis.
Well, the shooting in Portland left a man and a woman in hospital. The Department of Homeland Security claimed that Border Patrol agents were conducting a targeted vehicle stop at the time. Oregon's Governor, Tina Kotek, blamed the Trump administration.
We are all shaken and outraged by another terrible, unnecessary, violent event instigated by the reckless agenda of the Trump administration. This time in our own state, in our largest city, coming just one day after the tragedy in Minnesota. While the details of the incident remain limited, one thing is very clear. When a president endorses tearing families apart and attempts to govern through fear and hate rather than shared values, you foster an environment of lawlessness and recklessness. Trust is essential to maintaining community safety and the rule of law. Federal agents at the direction of the Department of Homeland Security are shattering trust.
Well, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, has defended that ICE agent who shot dead the 37-year-old called Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis earlier in the week.
He said that she tried to ram the officer with her car and he opened fire in self-defence, but it's a version of events strongly contested by an outraged community leader. Our US correspondent, Martha Kellner, has this report.
Your soul needs to grapple with the fact that you murdered a mother yesterday. Her son is 6 years old. His name is Emerson. Her name was Renee.
The name of Renee Nicole Good, shot dead by an ICE immigration agent, is echoing across Minneapolis. Reflection and resistance. A focus for the fury at Donald Trump's wider migrant crackdown. Anthony watched the horror unfold from his balcony.
It's so close where the car eventually ended up crashing.
Yeah.
He wants to remain anonymous because he has a government job, but shows me video he filmed of the moment it happened.
Right there.
So this is her car?
Yeah. So that's when she kind of tries to get out the way, and then she crashes.
You knew that she'd been shot at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can hear in your video someone shouting she's been shot in the face?
Exactly, yeah. That's what I heard too.
The timestamp on this video shows it's 9 minutes before first responders remove her from the car. They attempt resuscitation on the roadside. It's another 10 minutes before an ambulance arrives. A few doors away, Aidan was also watching.
You've got a very clear view of this.
I've got
I
was right in front.
You're pretty convinced that she was trying to drive away from the police officers?
She turned away from them. She was trying to flee, no doubt in my mind. It is more okay for a civilian to panic and try to escape than it is for a law enforcement agent to panic and kill someone.
But that's not the viewpoint in Washington. Qualified empathy from the Vice President.
What you see is what you get in this case. You have a woman who aimed her car at a law enforcement officer and pressed on the accelerator. Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making.
At the start of the week, the Trump administration had launched a massive immigration operation in Minnesota, sending 2,000 officers onto the streets here against the wishes of the majority. It was already an atmosphere ripe for confrontation. People are being urged to protest peacefully. But peace here feels precarious. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Minneapolis.
Well, to the Philippines now. At least one person has died and 38 are missing after a landfill collapse.
Yeah, reports say that many are trapped in an avalanche of rubbish from a waste segregation facility. An employee at the landfill said that teams were concerned about the height of the garbage for several years, as local media are reporting that rescue team efforts have been hampered by hazardous conditions. Well, time now to speak to the Conservatives this morning. I'm joined by Shadow Business and Trade Secretary Andrew Griffith, who's here with me, as you can see. Very good morning to you. Thanks for coming in. So pubs had been facing a big jump in business rates in April because of various factors, including COVID-era support being withdrawn. The government is indicating that it's going to make changes to those bill rises and support pubs. Good news, a government that appears to be listening and acting.
Well, always good news. There'll be publicans up and down the country who've been desperately worried, who really feel their businesses are bleeding out, can't see how to make ends meet. Hundreds of percentage increase in their business rates through that combination of factors. But it does go much more widely than pubs. And so the Chancellor should be laying out what she's going to do to end the uncertainty. And it's not just pubs, it's restaurants, hotels, businesses up and down the high street. They're all in exactly the same boat. So sort of cautiously good news, but let's see what the detail here is.
Well, exactly. We don't have the detail, but the word is this regards pubs. You're saying it should be extended to all those other hospitality venues, do you?
Absolutely. It would be completely unacceptable if it was just pubs. 6 out of 7 jobs in hospitality are across the whole sector. So you don't need to be dealing with a very small proportion of it. And if you think about it, I mean, when does a pub go from being a pub to a gastropub to a restaurant with rooms and hotels? So there's a big continuum, and the issue is much more wide than just pubs. I mean, hotels have faced over 100% increase in their business rates too.
Well, the government has acknowledged that pubs do need support. It's been suggested that any moves to support them could cost around £300 million. Given that we don't have the details, we can't confirm those figures. But if you are saying that the support should be extended to other hospitality venues as well, it's going to be a lot of money. I mean, is that a good use of government resources when public finances are restrained?
Well, it's not a huge amount of money in the grand scheme of things, and if you're putting people out of work and closing businesses on the high street, that of itself has a cost. Now, the Conservatives have laid out a plan that said we're going to reform welfare, we will make some tough choices, not everyone would love those choices, but they're proper choices, that would get down the cost of welfare, and that means that you wouldn't have a chancellor that keeps coming back with more taxes on business. So business rates was one. We warned the Chancellor ahead of the budget. The previous budget, it was national insurance hikes. They've been doing a lot to push up the cost of employing people, despite all of the number of people who are looking for work and on welfare. So we would have a fully costed plan that would take people out of business rates entirely, about 250,000 small high street businesses. I think people would see the benefits of that. The government just needs to make these tough choices and make them land. This is, I think, their 12th U-turn, and it just shows they're just not sticking to any tough choices that need to be made.
Well, yeah, they don't like the term U-turn, do they? They say that they're listening, and they say that it's a sign of confident government, that they can listen and then step in and make things work if necessary.
Well, we'd all love some competent government, wouldn't we? But this is a case where the Chancellor was warned. This hasn't come from nowhere. Nothing has changed in the last 6 weeks since the budget. I and others ahead of the budget talked about the impact of this. The government itself consulted on a discount of 20% on business rates, but ended up only giving a discount of 5%, which is certainly one of the things that's made this much worse. And I just think they just don't really understand business. They're not really listening to business. They're listening to other voices, and they just keep wanting to spend money. And if you do want to keep spending more and more money, if you're not willing to reform welfare, then sooner or later you are going to end up casting around and trying to put up taxes.
I just want to get your thoughts on a couple of global issues, because it's been a very big week for global events. Downing Street has said that the Prime Minister has had a second call with the US President Donald Trump in 2 days, and he's reiterated his position on Greenland. We're told that the pair discussed the need to deter an increasingly aggressive Russia in the High North. I wonder what you think needs to be done.
Well, look, the High North is a big challenge, and it's a huge area, and it's an emerging threat. The Conservatives support the government in the support that they gave to the US to intercept the shadow fleet, the ghost ships. And if the government want to do more of that, then we would understandably support them. Now, when it comes to things like Greenland, two things. First of all, the right of self-determination for any sovereign nation. Now, that applies as much to the Chagossians as it does for Greenland. So I hope that President Trump raised the plight of the Chagossians, that this government is trying to give away to Mauritius, actually pay to Mauritius to take that away. They deserve every same right as the people of Greenland that everyone seems to be concerned about at the moment. But secondly, the cornerstone of our defence is NATO. And clearly, you've got to respect NATO, and that includes Denmark, which is a core member of NATO.
You mentioned the Tory support of the interception of the Shadow Fleet tanker in the North Atlantic. Would you support the UK seizing any Shadow Fleet tankers that move through the Channel?
Look, I'm not fully cited on that. It's not my brief. We don't see all of the intelligence. We do directionally support the government. We took a very strong view when we were in government in terms of sanctioning those nations that were trying to evade sanctions, a lot of the money of which, of course, ends up on the front line attacking people in Ukraine. So directionally, that's something that we support. In terms of the individual detail, we'd have to have the government come and share that with us.
OK, well, Andrew Griffith, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in this morning. Thank you. Yeah. So we're still lots of questions around pubs. 100%. We should say the indication is that the government is going to move on this issue of business rates for pubs. But we could hear there from Andrew Griffith that the Tories feel they should go further because there will be other hospitality venues who also want the same kind of support.
Yeah, we'll get the sense to William Sitwell, of course, who's a landlord and a MasterChef judge later on this hour. See what he thinks about all of this. Now.
Also, coming up next, what significance does oil play in Donald Trump's Venezuelan gamble? We're going to hear from our business and economics correspondent, Paul Calsay.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Well, thanks for staying with us here on Mornings. Just some latest breaking news to bring you out of Iran. We've been following the ongoing protests into day 12 of the protests of people out in the streets of Iran against the regime. Well, the Iranian supreme leader has been making some comments. It's not entirely clear where these comments have been made, probably to state television, where he has said a number of things. Let me go through some of the details that we have. The supreme leader has said there are some rioters that want to please the US president by damaging public properties. We saw that report earlier that a government building had been burnt, the first government building that had been set on fire as a result of these protests. The Supreme Leader has also said that Trump should focus on problems in his own country.
That's right, and this, of course, comes after Donald Trump had issued a warning to the Iranian regime, saying that if they were to kill protesters out on the streets, he warned that the US was locked and loaded, and again he's repeated that message, hasn't he? He's a threat to hit Iran hard should the government clamp down on these protesters who are taking to the streets, it seems, in higher numbers than previous years.
Absolutely, increasing numbers seem to have more strength. The Supreme Leader has also said that Iranians should preserve unity and has also said that they will not tolerate mercenaries for foreigners. I mean, really a threat there to Donald Trump on the involvement that Mr. Trump has had in these protests. No sense that Donald Trump, of course, is directing any of these protests, but he has given his support to them. And as you say, Anna has mentioned that there will be US strikes if protesters are killed. I think about 34, maybe 40 protesters have been killed so far, as well as a number of members of the security forces. Is one we're going to keep a very close eye on today and throughout the weekend here on Sky News. Those ongoing protests, the biggest for many, many years in Iran.
Now, meanwhile, President Trump is expected to meet with oil executives at the White House later, just days after the US captured the Venezuelan leader, Nicolas Maduro.
Yeah, it's thought representatives from Chevron, ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips will attend the meeting to discuss opportunities for investment. Well, Venezuela holds the world's largest reserves of heavy oil, and Trump has been open about his plans to get access for the US.
We're taking billions and billions of dollars worth of oil, and it'll be hundreds of billions of dollars. It'll be trillions of dollars, but we're going to be there till we straighten out the country. We'll see how the country's doing, but we'll be running the oil. We're meeting tomorrow with all of the big oil executives. We're going to be right here in the White House. We're going to meet with the, biggest oil people in the world. They're all coming here. The top 14 companies are coming here. They're going to go in. They're going to rebuild the whole oil infrastructure. They're going to spend at least $100 billion, and it's an unbelievable oil that they have and an unbelievable quality of oil and amount of oil.
Well, our business and economics correspondent Paul Kelso has more. Paul?
Oil is at the heart of Donald Trump's Venezuelan gamble because through control of its vast reserves, he thinks he can dictate the country's future, enrich American companies and send a message to his adversaries. So let's have a look at how Trump is already leveraging Venezuelan oil, who the winners and losers might be, and the challenge he faces in reviving the industry there. Even before the capture of Nicolas Maduro, a naval blockade gave the US a chokehold on Venezuelan oil. This map shows us the position of 11 US Navy vessels on January the 3rd. That was the day Maduro was captured. There's aircraft carrier in that fleet, so a lot of power. And the aim was to prevent tankers in the so-called shadow fleet transporting sanctioned oil to Venezuela's few remaining customers. We can see sanctioned vessels here off the coast, some in the Caribbean. This was January the 7th. Now, we know this blockade has not been impregnable. Some shadow tankers have moved off, and 2 were seized earlier this week, one in the Caribbean and one, of course, in the North Atlantic with RAF support. Now, there are exemptions to that blockade, and they're American, perhaps not surprisingly. The US imports 20% of Venezuela's oil despite the sanctions. It's produced by Chevron, who were exempted from those sanctions by Joe Biden. We can see some of these Chevron ships off Venezuela, off Caracas. This was yesterday, and some making the journey from the US Gulf Coast refineries, where the heavy crude that Venezuela produces is refined and processed. Now, if this Venezuelan oil, apart from that US oil, isn't supposed to leave the country, where is it going? Now, this is ship tracking data, which gives us an idea. It's compiled by consultants Kepler. It gives us an idea of where oil at sea is effectively storage in limbo on tankers. And you see the Venezuelan oil at sea in storage has jumped in the last month. The yellow area here, that is Chinese ships or off China. Now, China is the largest customer for Venezuela's oil. It imports around 4% of its oil from Venezuela, and that could dry up if the US is in control. The blue area here is ships off Venezuela. The green is Malaysia, which is a big refining industry. The red, interestingly, is West Africa, though many suspect these are spoof locations from vessels in that shadow fleet trying to hide their actual whereabouts. Likewise, the black is other or unknown, so that perhaps on unofficial vessels. Now, Venezuela's onshore storage is filling up too, as these images tell us. But they also tell us something about the country's oil infrastructure and how decayed it is. If we look at these ones, in May 2022, this is the Puerto Miranda storage facility. If you see, these are oil tanks that rise and fall depending how much is in them. The white tops indicate they're in good repair and they're operational, but the darker ones, red or black, indicate rust and decay and probably not working. The consultants Kairos, who provide us with these images, estimate around a third of Venezuela's storage is out of commission. We can see this picture from New Year's Eve, many, many more of these dark circles which indicate storage that isn't working. There's another indicator of the decline in the Venezuelan oil industry. How many operational drilling rigs do they have? They use those to plumb new wells. Well, analysts think there were only 2 in operation last year. Compare that to more than 60 a decade ago. We don't have the data for 2021-22, but if you only have 2 drilling rigs, that slows down how fast you can expand the industry. And it doesn't bode well for the prospects of rapidly increasing production, as President Trump would like. That will take time, money, and expertise. This is production over the last 25 years in Venezuela, more than 3 million barrels a day at its peak. The Maduro presidency since then declined rapidly, less than 1 million barrels a day. It's a forecast for how it might double to 2 million barrels a day. The estimate is that's going to take $110 billion of new investment. So US oil companies may be meeting the president, but they will need serious guarantees about the legitimacy and security of any contracts before they make that kind of investment. Donald Trump banking on his word and the profits Venezuela might deliver, giving him control of the world's largest oil reserves and the political power that comes with them.
All right, Paul, thank you for that. All right. Coming next.
Yeah, lots coming up. We're going to talk about pubs because it's understood the government's planning to stand down plans to hike their business taxes. So we're going to get reaction from a publican.
Indeed.
So let's get more now on Storm Goretti that's been wreaking havoc across the UK, causing some travel disruption and school closures, of course. Well, we can talk now to a local resident, Graham Stewart, who's in West Aberdeenshire for us this morning. And Graham, I understand you're snowed in, is that right?
And has yet to stop. So we've had 4 to 5 foot of snow, and the entire area has ground to a halt.
How unusual is this for this kind of time of year? Morning to you, Graham. Kamal here.
Good morning. I'm sorry I missed that.
So how unusual is it to have that level of snow at this time of year? Of course, you know, it's winter, it's Scotland, so there's going to be snow, but 5 foot seems like a lot.
It's unusual for this area. We expect snow, but this is apparently the worst snow that we've had for about 10 years. I'm a bit of an incomer. We've only been here 2 years. And we expected snow when we moved here, but this is exceptional.
So have you got all you need in your house? I notice you have got power, which is good, but do you feel like you've got the provisions to kind of hunker down for a few days?
Yeah, we've been able to walk into the village. The village shops have been reasonably well stocked. The big concern in this part of the world is if the wind blows and the power goes out. When Storm Arwen hit a few years back, this area had no power for 8 to 9 days. So I think that's the concern for folks here, is that the power goes out. We are lucky we've got a diesel generator in the garage, so we can get by if the power does go. But everything just grinds to a halt. Local services are just gone. Nothing happens until the snow's cleared. So I think in this part of the world, we are used to it and we prepare for it.
Well, that's going to be my question, Graham, whether you had the diesel Jenny, and it sounds like you're set for that. But is it right that schools have been shut up there for, at least a week now and will continue to be closed? The kids haven't gone back after Christmas?
Our schools haven't gone back since the Christmas holiday. They're all shut in Aberdeenshire.
And what about elderly people as well? I mean, obviously at this time, sort of people who are living on their own, who are vulnerable, are going to be quite worried. I guess the community's quite good, is it, at pulling together and checking in on people?
The community is fantastic. We have a large farming community, and the farmers have been out every day with their snow ploughs and tractors, hauling cars out of snow drifts, clearing the roads. Our local carers have been going to their appointments on foot. They've been walking through the snow to get to elderly people. And it really has been ever so good. It's been a tremendous community effort. We have a young chap called Harrison Fry who's been going around clearing drives for folk. And last night he won an award. He won some sort of prize for his efforts in helping the community. So we are lucky. We've got a fantastic community up here in Afford.
Oh, that's really heartening to hear, isn't it?
And we're looking at your pictures at the moment, Graham.
Stunning. We've just got them through. They are very beautiful, but we're also sympathetic to your plight at the moment, being snowed in.
Yes, stay warm. Got plenty of food, as you've said, and all the best to you, Graham. Thanks so much for getting in touch, and all the best to everyone in Alford as well. It's going to be snowed in for the next few days, it would look like, but love that the community pulls together to make sure they get
exactly.
Really good stuff.
Now then, we're going to get more on pubs because the government, we understand, appears poised to soften its planned business rate hike.
Yeah. Let's speak to the restaurant critic from the Daily Telegraph and the owner of the White Hart, William Sitwell. A morning to you, William. Thanks for joining us. So, look, I tried to get it out of Anatolia earlier exactly when this would happen and what they were going to do to help publicans. She wasn't able to give me any detail. Have you got any sense as to what they will do? I mean, what do you need the government to do on this?
Well, none of us have any idea of what this government's going to do because they have an extraordinary way of announcing policies and then sort of wargaming them live on small businesses. And then, as the chair of the Labour Party said this morning, admitted on the BBC, they then evaluate what happens. And then it seems they then do a U-turn. It's the most catastrophic way of running a country. What we need is to, first of all, return to a situation that was pretty catastrophic before the budget, when pubs and hotels and restaurants and small businesses were facing a whole raft of policies that meant they were kind of staggering to their knees. Before this sly business rates increase was put through the back door at the same time as the Chancellor announced that she was welcoming in a new era of hospitality. So it's good that there is this news that they're going to row back on the increase in business rates, which UK hospitality estimate is an increase of about 76% on average across the country. But we need to go back before the budget and look at how the situation was, which, as I say, was already precarious, and look at things like decreasing rates of VAT so that pubs that I own, for example, can pass on those discounts to customers, so that breweries, for example, don't actually then cream off a healthier margin. So we need a VAT decrease, basically, so that we can encourage punters to actually cross the threshold, take that bold step, particularly in January, where we're hit by the twin evils of dry January and veganuary. You can't make much margin on a turnip. And we need to get people through the doors of our establishments. I mean, I've been writing about restaurants for 25 years. I went mad and opened one, and I'm now really, seeing the trouble that businesses like that face.
Yeah, give us an idea of how tough things are. You mentioned dry January and veganuary, although I haven't heard many people mention it.
Not
I can't
yet.
say
I
it.
can't even say it.
But how tough does that make it for publicans? Give us a sense of what everyday business is like for most people trying to run a pub at the moment.
What happens is, we have a restaurant as well, so we can see orders coming through on our Open Table app. You get cancellations. You get a storm like the one that we're facing in the southwest. You might look as if you've got a healthy number coming in the first week of January, and you can get sort of 70% of people then cancelling because they're fearful to leave their homes. Very understandably. Early week, the early parts of the weekend pubs is very, very quiet. You have to try and navigate this impossible situation of working out how to staff your pub. It's expensive just to put the lights on, and then you sit there praying that someone might walk through the door. If you're flooded with guests by some miracle, you're going to have to work out how on earth you can manage it, how you can keep those guests, keep those customers happy. It's a very, very difficult a jigsaw that you face. You've got to, customers have quite a big expectation now of what to expect. So you want to have a variety of lagers and stouts and ales in your cellar, but if you can't sell those, they go off. It's a very, very difficult balancing act. You have to balance the needs of a wide community that have different aspirations in terms of spending. It's a very complex business, and I'm learning it the hard way. So I really do hope that the government can sit down and really understand that it's not, people aren't banning Labour MPs from going to their pubs for some sort of political whim. It really does feel like punishment beatings. Hospitality is a cornerstone of culture. When you lose the pub, it's not just that you lose a chance to have a quiet drink and some fun with your friends. Young people use the opportunity to get early jobs. I think to work in a pub is better than joining the army. You learn poise, diplomacy. You learn how to, be graceful under pressure. It is from young people to caring for the elderly who might live on their own, who want to come and have a quiet drink at the bar and they can socialise. It is such a vital part of our country.
William, well argued, and the point made. We'll see, look, if the government, when the government row back on this, and then hopefully next time you and I and Anna and I will be able to have a longer conversation with you, William. Tough business being in the pub industry now, I think.
Indeed, yeah. William, thanks very much indeed. Yeah, it is, and one much loved, though, in this country.
Indeed. All right, let's take a look at the weather forecast.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, having brought major disruption to England and Wales overnight, Storm Goretti is clearing east, slowing down as it goes. Eastern counties will have a dull, wet afternoon with the potential for a sleety mix of rain and snow over higher ground. It's going to remain blustery, but winds will ease from last night's values. Rain in the east will become more showery, but will linger until late in the day. Drier conditions will spread in from the west, but there will be some coastal showers and they'll be wintry at times. Snow will continue over Scotland. Temperatures will remain in low single figures, but for most, they could reach 7 to 8 Celsius in the south. This evening, winds will ease further in the southeast with a cold night to follow. Showers will continue around exposed coasts, but inland.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Stay with us. Jackie will be here with all the sport in just a moment.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent. We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction. I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. What you see a lot of here are military machines, soldiers, devastation and destruction. What you see very little of are the locals, the Gazans, the people who used to live here, the ghosts of this town. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered. You have the black flag, you have the yellow flag, people were kidnapped.
Inside this convoy, prisoners released by Israel in exchange for their hostages. The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners. There were tears and there was defiance. This land has been farmed for hundreds of years, but now it's a scene of conflict. Israeli settlers have come to this area to seize land.
They've taken the land that I inherited from my father, and my father inherited from his father.
What would happen if you enter it?
Oh, we'll be shot.
This is a place where the past is cherished, but the future is feared. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life, to annex Gaza for Israel.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Gaza, which is just 2 miles in that direction, is under attack again. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
Now, 2026 is looking pretty good for cinephiles. pleased to say we can speak now to film critic and host of Girls on Film podcast, Anna Smith, about what we can expect in 2026. Good morning to you, Anna. So, are we right that it's going to be a big year for cinema?
I think so, yeah, wonderful year. I mean, we're in awards season at the moment. We've got the Golden Globes on Sunday, and one film that is being highly nominated is Hamnet. It's also up for 4 Girls on Film Awards. I love this film, and it's out today. So I think this is a really exciting start to the year that we've got Hamnet, one of the films of the year. Jessie Buckley is absolutely extraordinary in this film about Shakespeare's wife, Agnes, and it's a really beautiful story of loss, but also of healing, and Paul Mescal is wonderful as Shakespeare. It's kind of like flipping the story. You know, we've seen Shakespeare in so many films like Shakespeare in Love. This is a different angle on the story, very different.
Yeah, a very kind of domestic, small, personal story. I mean, I've read the book, I haven't seen the film, but and very, very moving, as you say. And it looks like Jessie Buckley could sweep the ball, couldn't she?
I think she could. She's got a little bit of competition, but I think, for my money, yeah, she is an incredible actress, and this is a real showcase for her.
OK, and also looking ahead to a film that's not out yet, but has been much talked about, Wuthering Heights.
Wuthering Heights. I'm excited about this. I haven't seen it yet. It's out on the 13th of February, in time for Valentine's Day. It stars Jacob Elordi, and it's absolutely, I mean, it's going to be a buzzy title because this comes from Emerald Fennell, and it also stars and is produced by Margot Robbie, and they work together on the likes of Saltburn, Promising Young Women. They always go for shock value. They always go for something very in your face, very poppy. Charlie XCX is doing the soundtrack. It's bound to be pretty steamy. I haven't seen it yet, but we will see.
It's going to stir up the traditionalists, though, isn't it?
It already has.
It already has.
It already is. Definitely controversial, but one to see, for sure.
And Devil Wears Prada 2 is coming out.
It is.
So good they made another.
Exactly. Well, it was such a huge hit, wasn't it? And, you know, Meryl Streep in particular was just, fantastic in this film. So we've got her coming back, Emily Blunt, Anne Hathaway, and also Kenneth Branagh's joining the cast this time, playing Meryl Streep's character's husband. So I think that should be pretty entertaining.
Stanley Tucci, is he?
Stanley Tucci's back, of course, yes.
Oh, fantastic. And weren't Stanley Tucci and... who's the main star?
Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway, yes.
Oh, was it? Some of them have been seen on the runway themselves and sitting watching some of the fashion shows.
They're dressing to match it these days. Yeah, they're gearing up for it. But yeah, there's a lot of excitement for this film, and I'm hoping that it will deliver.
Yes.
And I mean, this time of year is a great time to go to the cinema, isn't it? Because it tends to be when we get all the nominated films coming out. It's not just the fact that we've got award season, it's the fact that that's when they're released.
Exactly. We've got Marty Supreme in cinemas, Song Sung Blue in cinemas. A lot of the big hitters and the ones that are very likely to win Golden Globes on Sunday, they are in cinemas at the moment, so it's a great time of year.
And looking a bit further ahead as well, got a list here, some great movies coming out. I was watching Dune Part 2 the other day. I was wondering, when's Part 3 coming out? Well, I can tell you, 18th of December. Looking forward to that. A long time to wait.
December?
Yes,
that really is a look ahead.
We're looking ahead as well. We've got a lot
Never too early to get excited about it.
I'm already excited.
It's the same day as the next Avengers film, which is called Avengers Doomsday, and people are calling it Junesday.
Oh, of course.
Oh, there we go.
Get it?
And Toy Story 5 is coming out as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. That will be good.
It's going to be a great one.
Anna, lovely to have you in and talking us through the films to look forward to. Good weather for going out to the cinema and sitting inside, basically. Thanks very much indeed.
All right, let's talk about some football now, because there was a big old game last night which didn't quite live up to expectations, unfortunately. Jackie has joined us. Hello, Jackie. Morning to you.
Hello. Yes, it was a stalemate last night, and Arsenal's push for the title ended up being a very different push altogether last night. But playing Liverpool, Arsenal dominated the first half, lacking any real cutting edge, which materialised in a goal. And actually, it was Liverpool who came closest to scoring in that first half. It was a mistake, a very rare mistake by Arsenal, which ended up in this. And it could so easily have been 1-0. And then that might have been it, game over. Conor Bradley hitting the post with that delightful
nice little chip, wasn't it?
Hitting the bar.
Right back.
Into the second half then. And Liverpool was so much better. It's almost like whatever Slot said at half-time. They came out re-energised, played much more attacking football, totally dominated the second half. In fact, Arsenal found it really hard until the very end to get a shot on target. And you just thought, Liverpool could go on and win this.
How did Arsenal look? Because I had a conversation with them.
I think they looked nervous. I think there was sort of, having gone from... We've just won 3 matches post-Christmas in a row, and other teams have slipped up. Here's our great opportunity.
Yeah.
Full of confidence and self-belief, and you could just sort of feel that self-belief slip a little bit, and the crowd as well. gosh, is it going to happen again? Are we going to apple crumble? Just when we're in control.
Everyone's watching.
Everybody's waiting for them to sort of fold. But there was a moment of real frustration from Gabriel Martinelli, and it was. He'll be waking up this morning thinking, I really wish I hadn't done this. Truly believe he didn't realise that Conor Bradley was properly injured. That is what Arne Slot, the Liverpool manager, said afterwards. He said, unfortunately, there's so much play acting, so much time wasting late on in matches. You can see that players would think that somebody was running down the clock. But, you shouldn't do this. No, and obviously you shouldn't be trying to push a player off the pitch just to get on with the match. He has already apologised. He apologised straight away. He posted it on his Instagram. He said, Conor and I have messaged and I've already apologised to him. I didn't really understand he was seriously injured in the heat of the moment. I want to say I'm deeply sorry for reacting. Sending Conor all my best again for a quick recovery. I mean, he did leave on a stretcher. Yeah. He did leave on the ground on crutches with a knee brace, and I hope it's all right. He'll be scanned today, and I guess Liverpool will update us. So Liverpool very much looking like in the ascendancy in that match. Arsenal, 1 or 2 shots on target, came right in injury time. Their chances came right at the end of that match and ended up in nothing. And, of course, they're so good at set pieces, Arsenal, and you thought, well, it's now or never, pretty much the last act of the game, and it was never. But Arteta paid tribute to his team afterwards. He said, we've done so well in this period. It's been really busy. They've taken 3 points post-Christmas, 3 wins from 3, 1 draw today, and it's been really tough going.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. And also Liverpool as well. I think, again, that performance will show. I don't know, there was something really gritty about it. Yeah. There was something like dig in, let's show everyone, finding their fight. There was definitely a lot about them last night, even though they're missing key personnel, who will be coming back from AFCON at some point. Yeah. Quite soon.
And injury as well.
Yeah.
I mean, and the conditions were vile last night in London. I mean, I know that there wasn't the snow that other parts of the country have seen, but there was driving rain, wasn't there? I mean, will that affect the play, or are they so used to that?
It was pouring down last night, and it was relentless. I mean, it's got to, hasn't it? It's not ideal conditions, but I mean, very greasy surface apart from anything, and the players were sliding all over the place. In the studio last night, though, there was an interesting chat about Manchester United. Who is going to be the next Manchester United, not interim manager, but the proper manager? Because right now you've got Darren Fletcher. They're talking about who's going to see it through till the end of the season. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is in the frame, obviously, because he's done the job before. Michael Carrick's also in the frame as well. But who is going to be the man who can go in there and really embrace that job and really take it by the scruff of the neck and improve players and be the one who really understands Manchester United and what they're all about and what their DNA? And it was interesting. Roy Keane said...
Got some ideas, has he?
Eddie Howe.
I'd go with Eddie Howe.
Why?
I like him. No, I like what he's done. His management. He's managed a lot of games. When his teams are at it, they play good football. I know it's not for everyone. He'll have his critics. I like what he's done at Newcastle. Even at Bournemouth, he's managed 700-800 games. He's still a young man. I love his calmness. I think sometimes Man United maybe need a little bit of that. We've seen the previous manager going in. I like people who are emotional. Obviously, I'm quite an emotional person. But I think his calmness, what he's done at Newcastle, Champions League a couple of times, winning a cup, I'd be happy to see him go in there.
He likes him.
He likes him, but he's a nice guy, very comfortable in his own skin, has done great work, doesn't really need to prove himself. Would he want that?
We'll
tough job, right?
Becky, thank you for that. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you all for being with us. We're back again same time tomorrow.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.